Chapter 457 The Dark Flames. The closer they got to the room, Gaia felt an immense amount of pressure crushing them. It was as though an invisible mountain landed on their shoulder. Nightmare gasped for air in Gaia's hands. Stay here. Noticing the hard time they were having, Michael decided not to take them with him into the chamber. I'm not gonna argue, Gaia agreed with him, and so did Eladir with a nod. When Michael entered the chamber, he saw the black flames dancing above a pillar made of marble. Like the flames had sensed him, they leaned in his direction. Michael slowly reached out for the flames as they advanced toward him. Warning. 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 Extreme level of radiation detected. The system went crazy in his head. He ignored all the red warning poppings that were blocking his sight. As he was getting closer to the black flames, the warnings and the shoutings of the system vanished. Does the host wish to absorb the dark flames? The system asked when he was just a few inches away from the flames. Yes. Michael touched the flames, and the moment the flame and his fingers met, a wave of energy surged over him, wave after wave. The flames seeped through his hand into his very being. He felt like he was being struck by thousands of lightning bolts simultaneously. But instead of pain, it was a feeling of comfort. Absorbing the dark flame, activating the energy devourer, experience points converted 50,000, experience points converted 100,000. You can find the rest of this content on the L World COM platform. Experience points converted 70,000. The energy devourer continued to transform the excess energy into experience points. Michael thought it would stop in a few minutes, but on the contrary, it lasted until he began to level up rapidly. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 7. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 8. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 9. His excitement was going through the roof. He bottled his excitement when he reached Core Strengthening Stage Level 9, as he thought his leveling up would stop there. Congratulations to the host for reaching the next stage, the Soul Refining Stage. Oh my god, he's breaking through. Gaia sensed the violent energy fluctuations in the surroundings. The celestial energy descended from the realm of angels, creating ripples in the night sky. The last time Michael witnessed the celestial energy descending was when he traveled to the Rainbow Island, where Layla's disciples prevented Christopher from reaching the Soul Refining Stage. The system regulated the celestial energy through Energy Devourer. Hence, the jumping from the Core Strengthening Stage to the Soul Refining Stage was so much smoother than the rest of the cultivators in the world. His skin turned darker and darker to the point he looked downright black except for his crimson-red eyes. But soon, the red fire in his eyes was too invaded by the dark flames and transformed from red to black. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 1. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The leveling up spree finally stopped at Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The dark flames now completely merged themselves with Michael's soul, strengthening every fiber in his body. The dark flame absorption is completed. All of the host's spells and skills has strengthened by the dark flames. The host is now immune to all the attacks under the Soul Refining Stage except attacks powered by another primordial flame. The host's mastery over the darkness element is increased by 5%. New_chap_ or pub_list on L World COM. The host's mastery over the fire element is increased by 5%. Potions and pills made using dark flames will have 94% purity. The spell Responsive Shield has merged with Dark Flames and transformed into Dark Shield. The spell Ignitia has merged with Dark Flames and transformed into Dark Ignitia. The spell Wind Blast has merged with Dark Flames and transformed into Dark Blast. The spell Ring of Fire has merged with Dark Flames and transformed into Ring of Dark Fire. All these spells were powered up by the Dark Flames and became much more powerful. All these changes transformed him from a mortal cultivator to a godlike existence. Anyone under the Soul Refining Stage would have no chance of defeating him even if they used legendary spells. He could kill them with a single spell in his normal form, and if he was in his full Lucifer form, it would only take him a punch to destroy his foes. Moreover, in his complete Lucifer form, he could defeat anyone in the Soul Refining Stage and had the chance to defeat cultivators under Fusion Stage Level 3. The Dark Flames was one of the power seeds of darkness. Every time he obtains a seed of darkness, his power would grow exponentially. No one in this world knew the existence of these power seeds, and just like the seeds of darkness, there existed the seeds of light. In the race to get the seeds, Noah already obtained heaven's flames. By absorbing the dark flames, Michael now equalized odds. However, compared to Noah, Michael was on the next level in terms of power because Michael obtained the primordial flames of his source power, darkness. Noah on the other hand absorbed heaven's flame, not the light flame. Hence, he didn't go through the changes Michael did. This feels good, Michael grinned as he conjured the dark flames. The majestic dark flames danced over his palms. Then in a blink of an eye, the flames turned emerald green. He could now change the flames to his will. Human, just as he was about to see what else he could do now, Gaia called him. He walked out of the chamber only to see the skeletons as well as the dead bodies reanimating again. In a couple of minutes, hundreds of skeleton soldiers and almost 20 mountain trolls stood in front of them. The dungeon expanded in size to accommodate all the trolls and the skeletons. Gaia could crush the skeletons no problem, but the trolls were the real threat. Even with her cultivation, if the trolls managed to get their hands on her before she cast spells, she was as good as dead. Edlider felt the same, except he had no core strengthening stage cultivation. If he were to fight the army of skeletons in front of him, even with his runes he could survive the dungeon for a few minutes top. Due to the army of skeletons and trolls in front of her, Gaia had no time to be stunned by his breakthrough into the soul refining stage. The sight of hundreds of skeletons and trolls didn't scare him the slightest. On the contrary, it put a grin on his face. Visit Elworld. Calm for the best no underserved experience. Stay back, Michael said calmly before walking towards the skeletons and the trolls. Immediately the skeletons standing in front rushed at him waving the rusty swords in their hands. Dark blast, Gaia witnessed a dark crescent wave shoot out of him, blasting the skeletons to pieces. Everything the dark wave touched burned to oblivion. With a single spell, Michael decimated at least 30 skeleton soldiers and he didn't even use his full power. Lightning dash, in a flash he dashed to the center of the army. Ring of dark fire, before the skeletons and trolls could react, he cast another spell. A circle of dark flames shot out of him, scorching everything around him in a 5-meter radius. It didn't stop at that as the ring continued to send towering waves of dark flames. The flames burnt the trolls to ash like dried sticks. Unfortunately, these skeletons and trolls had no arch energy in them. Otherwise, he would have earned enough experience points to level up yet again. Still, Michael wasn't disappointed. They proved to be good dummies to test his evolved spells. The display of his power left Eladir in a daze. Each of his spells had the power to rival the most powerful legendary spells. They were not as fancy as some but deadlier than most. In a few minutes he had burnt almost 200 skeletons and 20 trolls. The most powerful spell in his arsenal turned out to be Ignitia. Merged with dark flames, the golden lightning bolts turned into bolts of black lightning. Each bolt blasted through the skeletons and burst open the trolls' heads into red mist as though they were melons. Half of the army had been reduced to ashes. At this point, Gaia wasn't even surprised by his power. Now time for my full form. Michael willed the system to equip his Lucifer armor, activate Cloud of Darkness as well as Eyes of Darkness, which flared up in black due to the dark flames instead of crimson red. The dungeon fell dark all of a sudden. The remaining skeletons and the trolls rushed at him mindlessly. They had no strategy or fear as they were just animated corpses that had a single purpose: killing the intruders. Death range, the dungeon became darker as Eladir noticed a black circle expand from him, wrapping everything in its path. Ring of dark fire, this time when he cast the spell, the dungeon trembled. The ring of dark flames was more violent, like surging tsunami waves. Eladir and Gaia heard unearthly vibrations as well as sensed the energy pulsating in the dungeon. Boom. One single wave, only one single wave. Every skeleton and troll was reduced to nothingness. Not even ashes remained after the dark flames brushed past them. Visit Elworld. COM for a better user experience. This is my true power, Michael mumbled under his breath. Even he was startled by his own power. Thinking that he only used 20% of his power and didn't enhance the spell further with celestial energy made him feel sorry for his enemies. Ghosty is scary, Nightmare's eyes went wide open. In the corner of his little heart, a sliver of fear emerged just like Eladir. Chapter 458 Pirate Heaven. Aiden. Inside the Ice Palace, Rowena meditated with her eyes closed. Her eyes slowly opened when she sensed Bai Ning approaching her. Bai Ning waved her hand as the mist shrouding the room faded away, revealing the empty room built of cold ice. Holy Maiden, Bai Ning approached Rowena. I scoured the Black Forest but I didn't find the fire giant's remains. Rowena slowly opened her eyes after hearing Bai Ning. That is now a problem of Mazeroth, Rowena said coldly. But Holy Maiden, the energy I sensed from the fire giant was something ominous and sinister. It's the Dark Lord. Bai Ning felt a chill running through her spine the moment Rowena said this. She suspected it, still it was shocking to hear from the Holy Maiden. I must alert the elders, don't bother. I already ordered them to stand down. Bai Ning was stunned. What? What? How long have you been searching for the Dark Lord? Rowena stood up. Bai Ning couldn't guess what was the meaning behind her question. For nearly 4,000 years, answered Bai Ning. You didn't find him then and you are not going to find him now. If I am right, he has covered all his tracks. Rowena was calm, too calm despite the situation. Bai Ning disliked the Holy Maiden taking the threat posed by the Dark Lord so lightly. However, the old woman knew better than to disagree with Rowena. What do you suggest we should do, Holy Maiden? Nothing, as Rowena said. She gracefully walked toward the wall behind her and waved her hand. The wall slowly split open, revealing the floating mountains and puffy clouds beneath them. Rowena closed her eyes, absorbing the cold energy of the dazzling moonlight. The Dark Lord won't stay in Aquilan realm for long. We have to catch him, Bai Ning said to herself. When the time comes, we will meet the Dark Lord. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here L-World. Sithoam Rowena would rather focus on getting stronger than wasting her time looking for the Dark Lord. It was not her job but the Great Eight clans. She approached Bai Ning and then flicked her wrist as a golden parchment appeared in her hands. The scroll looked exactly the same as the invitation to Mazeroth that Ghost received. Mazeroth has chosen Sabrina, send this to her. Rowena handed over the parchment to Bai Ning. Holy Maiden, if I may, can I ask you something? Rowena nodded at Bai Ning. Your brother was also chosen by Mazeroth, but why didn't he come? Because I told him not to. Not yet. Bai Ning was stunned. Do you remember the assassins you brought me, Bai Ning? Bai Ning began to sweat under her robes despite the chillness of the room. An oblivious spell was cast on them. Oblivious spell? Bai Ning's brows arched up. The oblivious spell was created by Qinjiu herself. This spell could only be cast by someone from Sky Hall. Almost 4,000 years ago Qinjiu invented the spell to forget about the Dark Lord. It was way before Qinjiu mustered the courage to fight back. After she escaped from the future, she desperately wanted to erase the memories of the Dark Lord. Those memories were beyond horrible. With her three best friends' help, she created Oblivious, which could erase someone's memories in part or as a whole. However, when she realized the risk of using such a spell, she made sure that only someone from Sky Hall could cast the spell. Before disappearing from Aquilan realm, Wulfric used the Oblivious spell on Eladir, erasing all of Eladir's memories of Wulfric as well as those who participated in the ritual. Yes. You know what this means, right? Asked Rowena as Bai Ning felt the room becoming colder and colder. The Holy Maiden's eyes flickered with cold, killing intent. Someone from Sky Hall? Cast it. Each word of these words could barely escape her mouth. Just by thinking about the possibility that someone inside Sky Hall may have targeted the Holy Maiden's family rendered her body a living statue. She could not even breathe looking at the Holy Maiden. You wouldn't happen to know who might be this traitor, would you? Rowena placed her hand on Bai Ning's shoulder as the old woman's entire body froze for a moment. Holy Maiden, I want everything about everyone in Sky Hall. You have a week. When Rowena took her arm off of Bai Ning's shoulder, the ice layer covering the old woman's body vanished into thin air. Yes, Holy Maiden. Bai Ning shuddered. The old woman bowed deeply in fear, and when she was about to turn back and leave, Rowena called her again. New novel published here, L-World. Seom Bai Ning, Holy Maiden. Not a single word about this to anyone. Rowena's words were colder than usual. They made the old woman shiver. I swear on my life, Holy Maiden. I won't speak of this to anyone. After Bai Ning left the room, Rowena waved her hand as the wall sealed close. Whoever you are, you dug your own grave. Rowena's killing intent rose through the roof. More than anything in this world, Rowena loved her family the most. The elders of Sky Hall advised her to cut the ties with her family as a Holy Maiden should, but Rowena outright refused it. She would destroy anyone who dared to threaten the safety of her family, even if that someone belonged to the Sky Hall. For Rowena, her family mattered more than the Sky Hall or the elders. Cast on the eastern side of a southern continent, the town of Aden was home to pirates led by one of the three pirate lords, Gibby's Blackmane Jet. This town wasn't built by an island by accident, as it had spiritual significance, which was of great importance to the pirates of Aden and its success despite the myth that pirates didn't give any importance to spiritual well-being. The town itself looked hideous and striking at the same time, with its willow-wood rooftops, redwood walls, and white, sandy beaches. The main attraction was the lighthouse, which was built 21 years ago and designed by the elves. The pirate population in Aden grew to over 2,000 residents, quickly outnumbering the 100 or so original law-abiding citizens. This once port city belonged to the Royal Navy of Ar had quickly grown lawless and became an exciting mecca for criminals, escapees, former slaves and mercenaries. In simple words, Aden was the safe haven for all the pirates in the southern continent where they lived as freemen doing whatever they wanted to plunder whoever they wanted. The sea was calm under the morning sun. Everything was going on as usual in Aden. Some pirates were sunbathing after drinking a little too much rum, and some pirates were making their way to the nearby tavern to drink rum after vomiting because they had drunk too much rum. No matter where one turned, they could see the pirates drinking, pissing, and having sex wherever they want as though they had no idea of privacy or shame. The place was completely lawless, but for the pirates, this place was their republic where the freemen reigned. Among the drunk pirates, only one remained steady. This pirate was barely 4 feet tall and one would hardly recognize him as a pirate instead of as a kid. Finally they are here. This little pirate was none other than Shorty. He was sent to Aden as a scout with a few others who were lying God knows where fully drunk. Hey look, war frigate approaching, what the hell? What flag are they flying? Some of the pirates who were not so drunk saw the 5 ships approaching their island and began to wake the others. Old Bertha was gracefully sailing in front like a formidable leader. The name Old Bertha hardly suited her as now she was fitted with brand new cannons, reinforced black hull, black sails, brand new rudder as well as 2 mortars, one between each neighboring pair of masts for long-range battle. Behind her were 4 brigades and they were all sailing in a rhombus formation. Try the L world. SOM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Ding, ding, ding. Shorty heard the bell sounds ring across the island, alerting the rest of the pirates and mainly the pirate captains. It's Pirate Lord Corey. They are flying Pirate Lord Corey's flags. The experienced pirates quickly recognized the lips and lightning bolt symbol on the black flag. The moment they saw the flags, they knew the ships belonged to Pirate Lord Corey and did not dare to fire the mortars. The residents of Aden quickly arrived at the port to see the 5 ships anchoring. Their eyes were glued to the mean-looking Old Bertha. They had never seen a ship completely painted in black as pirates considered painting the ships a waste of gold coins. Shorty couldn't wait to join back on Old Bertha. He was getting sick of living in Aden. All one could do on this island was get drunk, and since Shorty quit drinking so he could become a cultivator, he had nothing else to do except watch others get drunk and hump. Nonetheless, he still couldn't join his crew, not yet. Standing under a coconut tree with a few other pirates, Shorty saw Gibson walking out of Bertha first, followed by Tiberius. Shorty was surprised to see Tiberius with Gibson instead of Maxine. That's her, Pirate Lord Corey, really? She is scary as fuck. Who is that crippled old man and the guy behind her? Shush, she might hear you. Keep your mouth shut. Don't you know she can kill you with a single look? She is a witch, the pirates began to murmur. Most of them were shocked to see Corey because she was seldom seen outside of her island. Even Black Mane made more appearances to the pirates than her. Hence, when she came to Aden, the pirates were astonished. Moreover, she arrived with only 4 ships rather than with a small fleet. The pirates followed Corey and the men at a safe distance. Most were curious to see the purpose of Corey's visit while some just blindly followed the others. Shorty followed the men to the west side of the island where Pirate Lord Blackmane resided with a couple of his pirate captains. At the moment, Pirate Lord Blackmane went somewhere else taking a small fleet with him, and the one who was staying in Blackman's castle was another Pirate Lord Vance. The castle was not as majestic as the castles on other continents. It was rather a rundown castle with 5 slim, square towers scattered in a seemingly random pattern. They had been built for an ideal defense and were connected by fortified, heavy walls made of basalt. Their many holes and remnants of siege battle could be seen in the walls. Wide windows were scattered generously around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with same-sized holes for archers and artillery. Several minutes later, they finally reached the castle gates and were greeted by a red-haired lady with 2 rapiers hanging on either side of her slender waist and a bold man in tattered golden robes at the gates. Full_out current_novel on L World. COM Pirate Lord Corey, what a pleasant surprise, the red-haired lady spoke in a seductive tone. Pirate Lord Vance is eagerly waiting for you inside. The man on the other hand spoke in a rather cold tone, but Corey ignored both of their greetings and strode into the castle to spread the name of their new lord. Chapter 459 Become Lord Lucifer's Pirate Lord. After they entered the castle grounds, Gibson noticed barrels of rum, hay dummies, and cannons being repaired by pirates. Unlike outside the castle gates, the pirates inside were doing some kind of chores instead of being drunk and lying on the sandy ground. There were at least 50 archers atop the castle walls, all glancing at them. If they were to make a single wrong move, hundreds of arrows would riddle their bodies in a blink of an eye. Even if the archers had bad aim, they had the advantage of height. In addition to the archers, several groups of pirates sat in groups around campfires. These groups were the pirate version of patrolling soldiers. While Gibson was counting the pirates, Tiberius looked at the holes and remnants of cannon blasts in the castle walls. He could guess how many siege battles these castle walls must have gone through before submitting to the pirates. In Tiberius' mind, the pirates were wasting the island's potential by just treating it as their one super big tavern. There was no law, order, or even basic hygiene. He remembered Lucifer saying if these pirates were left ungoverned, they would not only be a threat to others but also to themselves. He could now agree with Lucifer's statement. He wondered why the Royal Navy of Ar didn't bombard this island and deal with the pirate threat. Why didn't we see any of Blackman's fleet on the sea? Asked Tiberius. The pirates were not fond of a strict hierarchy and calling others my lords. They considered themselves freemen, so even the pirate lord could be called by his name without any titles. Pirates hated these noble titles. Most of them hardcore pirates like Blackmane believed respect is earned through power and riches, not by titles. The only titles they allowed were captain and pirate lord. But the title captain gave no immunity to the captain as the title king would. If the crew became unhappy with their captain, they would throw the captain off the board or hang him or her in a heartbeat. The same was true for the pirate lord too, but there was never been an incident where the crew mutinied against a pirate lord before. What? You want to test us? The bold guy in golden robes snickered. Don't mind my friend here, he's being a bitch because his ship is under repair and couldn't go plunder as he wants. The female pirate chuckled to calm both of these men before either of them started a fight. We don't usually anchor our fleet in Aden, friend. As they say, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Tiberius agreed with the pirate woman as they walked past several pirates rolling barrels after barrels into a cabin. Just the smell permeating from those barrels was enough to make their taste buds savor the sweetness of the rum within. So Vance is still plundering only the ships that carry rum? Pirate Lord Corey asked the red-haired pirate. Of course. Isn't that genius, Pirate Lord Corey? We hit ships with gold, sugar, gems, and all that will turn into gold coins and go straight to buy rum. Why go through all that trouble when you can directly take what you really want? The latest _sodies are on the L World.com website. It shouldn't make sense, but it does. Corey chuckled at first. Tiberius thought it stupid to plunder only the ships that carry rum shipments, but after meeting the pirates, it sounded way less stupid to him. If anything, this was a stroke of genius because most Navy ships carried gold, gems, ores, sugar, and weapon shipments. Plundering those ships was not only risky but would also make them a threat to a kingdom, or worse, a threat to the Ar Empire. Rum, however, carried by merchant ships, and plundering merchant ships was like taking candy from a baby compared to plundering a Navy ship. Besides, like the red-haired pirate said, even if the pirates plundered tons of gold, their earnings would eventually be used to buy rum and whores. By directly plundering rum and the valuables from the merchant ships, they could easily get both without any hassle. Eventually, after passing several more rum warehouses, they climbed a set of gray stone stairs to step onto the throne hall, which had been turned into a lavish tavern. Several long oak tables were placed from the bar counter to the end of the hall. As expected, the primary clientele of the tavern was pirates, and the maids were ladies who generously revealed their deep cleavage to their customers. Of course, some outright seemed uncomfortable putting up with all the butt slapping and hand grabbing. Tiberius' nose twitched due to the stench of piss, vomit, and rum. Despite the stench, the tavern itself was packed and lively thanks to the singing and dancing. I have to give it to them, they are one happy bunch, Tiberius thought in his mind. Building a country for the freedom fighters and managing it was harder than he had imagined. Some days he would prefer to fight in the arena than to go through the necessities they want and the gold coins they have. The task of being a ruler was stressing him, and Maxine suggested he take a rest and spend his time in Old Bertha. Live a pirate life, that what she said to him. Living with them helped him more than he liked to admit. He had no worries, no responsibilities. He just trained, sailed the seas, singing with the crew, and drank and ate as hearty as he wanted. Being a pirate was fun, except the world was changing, and if the pirates didn't change with it, only extinction awaited them. Hey Melina, you want a drink? A bearded old man raised his mug and shouted at the red-haired pirate as they were making their way to the stairs behind the bar counter. Join you later, the red-haired pirate waved at the old man. Meanwhile, some pirates noticed the tattoo-covered Corey and recognized her. Tiberius and Gibson could hear various chatter focused on Corey. None of them dared to raise their voice or approach Corey because of her infamous reputation as a witch. Melina and the bold man knocked on the door after climbing the stairs leading to the second floor. This underscore content is taken from L-World. Come in. Melina opened the room to be welcomed by a man sitting behind a large oak table with several maps and rum bottles. He had a pair of dark brown eyes, a tanned complexion, straight black hair hanging over his broad shoulders and a stubble beard. Currently, he was sitting on a chair and drinking with his feet atop the table. A long greatcoat was hanging on the stand near the table and he was in a dark shirt revealing his chiseled chest and matching gray leather trousers. He also wore a stud earring on both ears as well as a scar that ran across his left cheek. What a fucking surprise. Pirate Lord Corey, here in Aden outside of Harwich Island, just like his look, his thick voice too had a flair of cruelty to it. Go entertain yourselves. Gibson dismissed the crew by sending them to the tavern below with a pouch of gold coins. After the crew left the room, the bold man closed the door as Corey took the chair in front of the table while Tiberius and Gibson sat on the chairs behind Corey. They let Pirate Lord Corey lead the negotiation as they planned. What can I say? Times are changing, Vance, Corey calmly said. I assume your sudden visit to Aden is not to enjoy our hospitality? Not entirely true. I heard you can't find a finer rum anywhere else. Horse 2. Vance grabbed Melina's hands before pulling her closer to him. She sat on the chair's arm, seductively laughing. I heard things too, Corey. Things like the legendary Silent Reaper resurface, one of your pirate captains leaving your side to join another crew, and my favorite. Vance paused for a second and went on, magic-wielding captain. If I was not too drunk, I heard he's called Lucifer. Lord Lucifer, Corey corrected Vance, and when Vance saw the look on Corey's face he was surprised. Initially, he didn't believe such a rumor that someone was using magic inside the Void Line. To this day he couldn't believe Corey was able to use magic. Imagine his surprise when his crew told him that the captain of the black ship could cast spells and use magic. Did I hear you right? Melina, did she say Lord? Because I heard she say Lord. Vance asked Melina. Yes, she did. Full underscore Avalon L-World. So when you said times are changing, you meant you became someone else's bitch? Gibson quickly pressed Tiberius' feet with his fake leg to stop him from lunging at Vance. Like it or not, they were in a pirate fortress without Lord Lucifer or the Dark Queen. Old Bertha could give a hell of a fight, but she wouldn't be able to survive if all the pirate ships and defenses around Aden bombarded them. Being a bitch is better than being dead, Vance. You have to be alive to enjoy the pirate life. Corey smiled, but behind that smile, one could see the hidden menacing look. If I don't know any better, I would consider that as a threat. Vance's voice became colder. What I'm here to offer you is an opportunity of a lifetime. Vance. Corey leaned forward, getting richer and stronger without making an enemy out of the kingdoms and our. How does this sound, Vance? Let's just assume I'm interested in such an opportunity. What's the catch gonna be? Vance did not seem to be interested at all. Instead of looking at Corey while he was speaking, he was playing with Melina. Tiberius' eyes twitched. He knew by looking at Vance's attitude and the way he talked, that this negotiation was destined to fail. Join Lord Lucifer's ranks as his pirate lord. The moment Corey spoke these words, Vance stopped playing with Melina's lips. He turned his gaze to Corey and those pair of eyes were flowing with murder. In other words, you want me? Vance stood up. A bitch? He banged the table as the rum bottles on the table blasted away. Despite Vance's outburst, Corey was still calm. Visit L-World. .com for a better reading experience. What if I say Lord Lucifer can grant us immortality? Melina and the bold man who listened to Corey were startled. Vance wasn't interested in riches and power like many others in this world. He would rather live his life plundering rum and drinking than capitalize on a golden opportunity. There was nothing much Corey could offer that would tempt him except immortality. Chapter 460. The Almighty Sunrise Sect. That shit doesn't work for us. Your sales pitch would have worked on those freaks who call themselves cultivators. Vance snickered. Sigh. Corey sighed. It seems like you need a demonstration. Vance saw Corey close her eyes. Subconsciously he took a step back from the table. Corey felt the crystal pendant on her neck warming up. The warmth slowly spread through every being in her body. Crystal dagger. She opened her eyes abruptly, raising her hand at Vance. Melina and the bald man immediately jumped in front of Vance to defend, though they were too late. They only felt a gush of wind blow past their faces. Fuck. Vance stumbled back as a blue dagger floated in the air just an inch away from right between his eyes. He shuddered and without his control, he started to sweat under his shirt. Melina and the bald man's faces lost all color and became pale. Melina's hands on her rapier were shaking. This had heard about cultivators casting spells and using magic, but this was the first time they had witnessed it in real life. They couldn't stop themselves from shivering. The dagger was still hovering in the air, radiating a chilling aura. "Arg fuck," Vance growled when he tried to grab the dagger. The dagger's cold surface burned his palm. "This is just a taste of power Lord Lucifer blessed me with, Vance. In front of him, we are powerless and insignificant as ants. Imagine the possibilities of having such powers, Vance. We can be much more than pirate lords." Corey put her hand down as the dagger vanished into thin air. Only now Vance could let out a heavy breath. He just stared death in its eyes and survived to tell the tale. His mind was slowly digesting the fact of how insignificant and powerless he was, just as she said. If Corey wanted, she could have simply killed him and the two pirate captains in a blink of an eye without making any fuss. They could have walked out of the island simply, as by the time the drunken pirates noticed their bodies, they would have been long gone. Still, every fiber in his body screamed against him at the thought of serving someone else other than himself. He felt as if he was being forced to bend his knees. He preferred to die on his feet than to live on his knees like a true pirate. "You have 2 weeks to give us your answer, Vance." Corey stood up to leave. "Nunder, Sir published on L World. Sidom, what if I didn't?" Vance's question stopped her on her way to the door. "Nothing." Corey didn't even turn back. "If you can't grab an opportunity when it slaps you on the face, you're not the pirate I thought you are." Tiberius followed Corey and Gibson behind, leaving the pirates stunned. He couldn't help chuckling, noticing the fear in their eyes. "Pirate Lord Corey, is it okay to leave them?" "You know, they might blabber," Gibson asked as they were climbing down the stair. "They should." Corey smiled. Everything went according to Lord Lucifer's plan. Gibson wasn't surprised by her words, and neither was Tiberius. They both knew that Lucifer was as cunning as he was powerful. "Those pirates should be grateful they didn't come here," Tiberius calmly said. The they he meant were Lucifer and Dark Queen. "I've yet to see someone live after saying no to him." The trio left Aiden after staying for a day. Shorty handed over all the information he gathered in Aiden to Gibson, which was then transferred to Maxine. Old Bertha started her voyage searching for Black Mane, the last pirate lord. The Broad River sect of Kingdom Kethan was a beautiful castle surrounded by majestic gardens and fountains magically created out of the crystal blue lake surrounding the sect. The sect looked very impressive despite having stood for over 500 years. Many buildings were being built and the existing buildings were getting repaired. The major construction work was on the main castle. It was believed that the magnificent fountain in the middle of the sect's park had healing and beautifying properties. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here L World. Seat OM. The sect had an average reputation under the previous sect leader Matthias. However, the new sect leader Ella raised the reputation of the sect to one of the best in Kethan after merging the Broad River sect with the famous Sunrise sect of River Town. Many nobles in Kethan and the fellow sects tried to destroy the Broad River sect by fanning the flames between Ella and Matthias during the inner conflict. However, the civil war soon came to an end when the majority of the students and elders sided with Ella to merge with the Sunrise sect, and Matthias was burnt to death by the bandits. The sect was still investigating Matthias' death to apprehend the bandits who killed him, except many believed it was Ella who killed Matthias with the help of Ghost, the rising star of River Town, who now held the title of king on top of many. The name Sunrise sect was hanging on the gateway instead of their previous name Broad River sect. They engraved the golden words on black metal. At the moment, Ella was going through a stack of documents located on a long oak table in a spacious room with many windows and many portraits of the previous sect leaders. The portrait of Ella's family, a bearded man and a black-haired lady in a red dress, hung behind Ella. There were some delicate silver instruments puffing smoke and whirring on a table next to the big oak table. One could also see several book racks filled with ancient books and parchments. All of them were illuminated by the majestic chandelier right above the crimson-red rug. Any visitors could rest on the comfy black couches given to her by Claire as a gift. In addition to the couches, there was a wooden throne-like chair located just before the oak table for having official talks. Unlike before, Ella did not wear a dark cloak covering herself. Thanks to Ghost's potions and cream, her burnt skin recovered its natural glow. Her skin now glowed like jade, so she wore colorful clothes that expressed her joy rather than gloomy dark robes. Despite her 40-plus age, she looked as though she was still in her late teens. She had already started to receive many proposals only to get rejected by her one after another. She was rejecting not because she had no plans to get married, but rather because she was waiting for the right man. Knock, knock, knock. While she was reading all the income and expenses reports of the sect, someone knocked on the door. "Headmistress, come in," Ella said, and put down the report to take a break. A young female disciple dressed in a long black coat with red linings walked into the room carrying a cup and saucer. This _content is taken from L World. Sion, Headmistress, hey, race your tea. The young girl brightly smiled at Ella and placed the tray on the table. And Headmistress, sect leader Olivier has arrived and is on his way to meet you. Ella took a sip of tea and felt a surge of sweet aromatic energy exploding in every fiber in her body. The exhaustion of reading through the report evaporated along with the smoke coming out of the tea. She took a deep breath as the tasting buds in her tongue had a small party. Headmistress, the young girl chuckled silently looking at Ella's expression. Oh yeah, Olivier, good. It's time I had a little chat with him. You can go now, Peggy. The young girl bowed, and when the girl reached the door, Ella stopped her. Peggy, Hades is reopening today. Tell Master Ricky to book a table for 2-inch. Just by thinking of Hades, Ella's mouth started drooling. To be honest, she could not wait to finish the meeting with Olivier and stuff her belly with as much food as she could. It had been too long since she tasted Raylene's cooking. She was glad to be in the close circle of Ghost. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to get a table in Hades whenever she wanted. Even the Princess of Royal Land and her friends had to book a table 2 weeks earlier. As you wish, Headmistress. After the girl left the room, Ella continued to enjoy every sip of tea. She felt the $1,000 she spent on getting a flask of Raylene's tea was totally worth it. Each and every sip was sweet, mind-boggling goodness that soothed her from within. Only she hated the feeling of the bottom of the cup. Headmistress is waiting for you, my lord. Ella heard the guards outside speaking to someone, and shortly after she saw Olivier, a bald old man with a bushy white beard, strolling into the room. The old man looked to be in his late 70s and wore plain white robes. He looked to be in his late 70s while his real age ranged between 100 to 150. Ella noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Everyone in the sect leader's circle knew the man was struggling to break through to the core strengthening stage. He was stuck on the core formation level 10 for more than 10, and even Ghost revitalizing pills or cultivation enhancers could not break his bottleneck. That didn't mean Ghost was unable to help Olivier with his bottleneck. In fact, he left a crate of special potions just for people who were suffering from cultivation bottlenecks. A potion from that crate was Ella's major bargaining chip with the negotiation she is about to have with Olivier. Visit L World. So for a better reading experience, thank you for coming to meet me, sect leader Olivier. Please take a seat. Ella gestured at Olivier to take a seat. Regardless, the current Broad River sect was much more prominent than Oliver's White Cloud sect, and in fact, the two sects shouldn't be compared, as the current Broad River sect had become a mammoth in Kethen. That was why Olivier came all the way from his sect to meet Ella when she summoned him. Offending Ella would be like offending the Sunrise sect. Nowadays, they had the same influence and power to be equal to the 3 big sects themselves. How would you like to join our Sunrise sect, sect leader Olivier? Chapter 461. Takeovers. Elon and Azair were yet to recover from the Hydra's outcry. Apart from a few devices invented by the Guardian Guild, there was no way to gauge someone's cultivation level as they had been doing forever. Nonetheless, Ella needed no device to tell Olivier was still at the core formation stage. The dark circles under his eyes and the collarbones building out were enough. Come again, sect leader Ella. Olivier frowned. He could swear that he heard her asking him to join her sect. Drop the formalities, Olivier. Call me Ella. Ella giggled, waving her hand. Olivier was still staring at her without batting an eye as she continued. Rumors claiming you're looking for a new successor to inherit your position as sect leader. Any truth to those rumors? Oliver carried the torch of sect leader of the White Cloud sect for nearly 60 years. Until 2 decades ago, the density of arch energy was extremely low in the world. Thus, the majority of the cultivators born before that time could not reach high stages of cultivation like the youngsters nowadays. So reaching the core formation stage 60 years ago was a pretty big deal. Olivier was considered a prodigy and inherited the sect leader position from his predecessor. The stress of being a sect leader had slowed down his cultivation speed. It took him 40 years to reach level 10 of the core formation stage from level 1, and he spent millions in gold coins buying rare potions and items. Thanks to Ghost and his potions, he was able to cultivate much faster than he used to. Still, it was not enough to make him break through to the core strengthening stage. Since many of his friends advised him to leave his stressful sect leader position, he was looking for a new successor, except he had been doing it under wraps. How the hell did Ella know about this was beyond Olivier. However, rather than focusing on how, Olivier just sighed. Matter of fact, I am looking for someone to take over the sect after I enter seclusion. Something told Ella that it might be his last seclusion. Many cultivators who were suffering bottlenecks would go to the Lonely Mountains as a last attempt to break through to the next stage. The Lonely Mountain was an uninhabitable place where extreme yang and yin energy were always colliding with each other. Due to these two extreme energies, the place only had 2 climates, freezing cold and burning hot. 9 out of 10 cultivators would die trying to break their bottlenecks. If a cultivator could absorb and survive the yin and yang energies, it would break the bottleneck. Venturing into the lonely mountain was the last resort for any cultivator. I've been following your sect closely, Olivier. You have certainly done a good job keeping the sect from declining. But your sect has so much potential, it could go beyond and further. Surprisingly, Olivier gently smiled, shaking his head slowly. Ella, I lived long enough to know what you're trying to do. You want my sect to be merged with the Sunrise sect. You literally said that. I've been doing what's right for my sect ever since I became the sect leader. Give me one reason why I should agree to this merger? She would be lying if she said she wasn't pleasantly surprised by Oliver's directness. Wearing a smile on her face, Ella waved her hand as a glistening emerald green potion bottled inside a palm-sized vial appeared on the table. This is my reason. 1-inch Olivier did not recognize the potion, but he sensed a great amount of energy coming from the vial. Before handing over the potion to Olivier, she grabbed a golden parchment and slid it toward Olivier. And this is reason number 2. Go on, open and take a look. Olivier untied the red ribbon to read the contents inside, and the moment he laid his eyes on what was written, he was taken aback by surprise. The parchment contained all the financial information about the Broad River sect for the last 5 years. No sect leader would reveal this to another one, especially another sect leader. In addition to the financial side of things, the parchment also contained the cultivation status of a number of disciples and elders. You put your soul and body into your sect, Olivier. It's your baby, so it's no lie that major change such as a merger would greatly concern you. What you're holding in your hands is to reassure you that if you agree to this merger, it will be in the sect's best interest. Ella paused for a moment and continued. Before we merged the Sunrise sect and became a part of them, it would be nothing but a miracle to see us disciple break through to the core formation stage before the age of 30. But now, once a month, we get a new core formation stage disciple. Each student now has their own cultivation space and they get free potions and pills, made by Ghost himself. Even the disciples of the 3 big sects don't have such an advantage. It was shocking, but Olivier agreed with Ella in his mind. He also did his research about her and the sect just as she did. No sect would give their disciples potions and pills every month, let alone for free. It was crazy even to think that they had been giving potions and pills made by the 5-star alchemist for free as though they were candies. His disciples and even the elders had to wait in the line for a day to get their hands on the potions and pills made by the Ghost, yet the Broad River sect disciples were getting them for free every month. If it wasn't for the rule that a disciple would get only 1 potion and pill of each kind, the students of the Sunrise sect and Broad River sect would have made a ton of money by selling them on the side. The demand for Ghost's products was going through the roof. And if I'm right, you are planning to go to the Lonely Mountain for seclusion. You don't have to if I can help you. Ella slid the potion towards Olivier. Have you heard the news that Ghost could reach 90% purity? Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. Olivier nodded. Following the events that happened in Hades, every newspaper including the royal newspaper had printed Ghost's ability to reach 90% purity in alchemy products he made and his admission to Mazeroth on their front page. At that time the news spread throughout the continent like wildfire. Not a single soul was unaware of this. That's a 90% pure potion brewed by Ghost himself. And you can't get this particular potion anywhere, it's one of the special potions brewed by him, especially for cultivators such as you. Oliver's hands trembled while holding the potion in his hand. In 1 month, you will be able to break through to the core strengthening stage if you take this potion. You are welcome to take this potion with you and appraise it for yourself. No cultivator would blindly drink an unknown potion no matter how pure it was. What if it was poison instead of a miraculous potion? They would first appraise the potions using a trusted alchemist of their own before taking them. Although no alchemist who was qualified enough to appraise Michael's potions existed in Elon, one could find if it was poison or not, unless of course Michael didn't want them to find it. Despite Olivier knowing she was being so generous and trusting to complete the merger, he still appreciated her gestures. What if I said no to the merger? Do I have to give this back? Of course not. Ella waved her hand with a smile. Whether you accept it or not, this potion is yours unless you don't want it. Oliver's hand clutched the potion tighter. His heart told him to let go, but his brain screamed at him to hold on to the potion. If what Ella said was true, it finally could bring his suffering to an end and make him reach the core strengthening stage. As I said, your sect is your child and every parent would want what's best for their child. Don't think that if you agree to the merger you will be sacked. You will still be the head of your sect who makes all the major decisions. Only your title would change from sect leader to headmaster. Olivier took a deep breath. I've served my sect long enough, Ella. It's time for me to step down and a young one to take over the sect. Ella's eyes twitched after she heard him. She refused to believe after everything she offered to convince him the old coot wasn't agreeing to the merger. Luckily what she heard next put a smile on her face. However, I will take a week's time and think about this merger. It's a big decision nonetheless. I will make one last decision that might lead my sect into a golden age before I leave my position. Olivier shook Ella's hands and left the room with the potion. It was a sign that he would get the sect's affairs in order before agreeing to the merger. 2 sects down, 3 more to go, Ella grinned. The Sunrise sect took over not 1 but 3 sects in total, and with Oliver's sect, the number would be 4. Ella was leading the takeovers in front. She was a ruthless negotiator and a leader. That was why Michael chose her to take over the sect instead of Claire. Not to be mistaken, Claire was a great leader, but she was not as ruthless as Ella. For instance, if Olivier chose not to accept the merger, Claire would have accepted his choice. On the other hand, Ella would have incited a civil war inside his sect first, and then she would have killed him and replaced him with someone who would do her bidding. Just as Lucifer's influence was expanding throughout the southern continent, Ghost's power slowly grew in Elon through the Sunrise sect. The 3 big sects had already noticed the power scale changing in the continent, and sooner or later, one of them would make a move to stop the Sunrise sect from swallowing the small sects and become one major power that could rival them in every aspect. Chapter 462 Holy Matrimony. Michael and Gaia were standing in Professor Lane's office. The office was a gloomy and dimly lit room located adjacent to the alchemy classroom. The shadowy walls were lined with shelves of large glass jars filled with slimy, revolting things, such as bits of animals and plants, floating in potions and pills of varying colors. Michael noticed there were more jars in the office than in the classroom. The office had a fireplace. In a corner, there was a cupboard containing Lane's private stock of alchemy ingredients. Professor Lane was examining the tiny dot of dark flames hovering above Michael's pinky finger. This is not the Hell's Flame. Is this even a primordial flame? Professor Lane's waspish voice sounded shocked. What do you mean? We risked our fucking lives in that dungeon. Gaia stomped the wooden floor beneath her feet. Ignoring Gaia's temper tantrum, Professor Lane brought a 6-foot mirror to Michael. Touched the mirror with the flames. Professor Lane covered himself with his dark robes while Gaia took several steps back from Michael. The already gloomy room grew darker as he conjured a ball of dark flames over his right hand. Despite the arrays placed in the office, Lane could feel his soul aching. It was as though the heat coming from the flames burning his soul itself. Michael covered his palm with the dark flames and touched the mirror. Boom. The mirror suddenly exploded into 1,000,000 pieces and the shards evaporated into nothingness before they could even hit the ground. Is this supposed to happen? Michael asked as the system began to offer him thousands of badass points. For a moment, Michael noticed Lane's eyes open wide. No, it's not. This flame is much more powerful than any other primordial flames, Lane said in a gravely serious voice. Michael already knew this, yet he pretended to be surprised. Quickly, Professor Lane made his way to the rack where he lined up all his personal collection of pills and potions. He rummaged through the collection to pull out an emerald green box. This pill will disguise the flame as the Hell Flame. Take it. Lane handed over the small box to Michael. Michael was curious to see what was inside, though he could sense powerful radiation coming from within. He then slowly opened the box and saw a purple pill resting on a red cloth like a wedding ring. Because Michael absorbed a primordial flame, he could sense another primordial flame, and he sensed the energy of a primordial flame within the pill. However, it seemed as if Professor Lane used a sliver of primordial energy as an ingredient to concoct this pill. Before taking the pill, however, Michael looked at Professor Lane with a gentle smile on his face. Why help me, Professor? No offense, but you don't seem like the friendly helping professor type. You might only be someone worthy of my teachings, Professor Lane simply said. Since Michael had a plan of his own, he did not poke Lane any further. Meanwhile, in their room, Victoria and Edith placed the glass orb that enabled communication from the Ukulun realm to Thusia. Victoria placed her hand on the orb and sent a sliver of cosmic energy as the glass orb immediately began to glow brighter and brighter. Victoria and Edith took several steps back. Soon, 2 figures in ethereal form appeared above the orb. The man was in a crimson-red robe that draped the floor beneath him. He had striking crimson-red hair dancing over his shoulder, blue eyes, and a thick beard without a mustache. His muscles were bulging out of his crimson-red robes. The man possessed an aura of an emperor and not of a kind, benevolent emperor. Rather, he seemed cold, iron-fisted, and powerful as a god. The woman who remained by his side had golden hair, a gentle smile on her face as well as a pair of glistening hazel eyes. Her perfect structure was covered by a long gown usually made of a luxurious tunic and contained embroidered lace and gems. "Father, Mother," Victoria immediately dropped to one knee and bowed her head. "Your Majesty, Your Highness," Edith curtsied them with a royal bow instead of kneeling down like Victoria. They were the King and Queen of Thusia, Maxim Barnes and Valeria Barnes. Valeria looked at Victoria with a kind look, and she was about to speak when a cold voice reverberated in the room. Unacceptable. Maxim Barnes' voice conveyed authority. The voice emanated from his 6'6" stature commands attention. It was unmistakable. At its most pronounced, it felt like a whip against dewy skin. "You have failed to secure the primordial flames. What have you learned from your failure, Victoria? Raise your head and answer." Victoria shuddered like a child in front of him. "The primordial flames indeed have a mind of their own, Father. They refuse to submit to the cosmic energy, and one of them has chosen a new master." "One of them?" frowned Maxim Barnes. "Yes, Father, there were two primordial flames. Fool." King Maxim raised his voice. He was furious. Along with his shout, a powerful blast shot out of his ethereal figure and blasted Victoria onto the wall behind her. "Vicky!" Edith was stunned, but she quickly ran to Victoria. "No." Victoria refused to take Edith's hands and picked herself from the ground without any help. Knowing about her husband's anger, Valeria remained silent. She did not even try to calm him down because she knew it would only make him madder. Victoria ignored the blood slowly trickling through her nostrils and knelt before him just like before. "Only the three primordial flames can stop the cosmic energy." "What does that mean?" asked Maxim Barnes. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. "Our enemies can use the primordial flames against us," Victoria immediately answered Maxim without even taking a second to breathe. They will use the flames against us. That is why we must secure them for ourselves before our foes. Each failure teaches us a lesson. Learn from your failures." "Yes, sir." Victoria placed her hand on her chest and declared. "Have you found someone worthy of you in Mazeroth?" asked Maxim. "No, Father." She shook her head. Maxim looked at Victoria for a moment and then disappeared, leaving Valeria with the two girls. Edith finally let out a deep breath and felt her muscles loosen up. "Rise, my daughter." Valeria's gentle voice swept over Victoria. There was nothing but love and kindness in her eyes. She looked and acted like the embodiment of compassion. Victoria stood up, revealing a delicate smile. "Your father and I have picked two young men who might be worthy to take your hands in marriage, Victoria. If you have no one in your heart, you can select either of them and you won't be disappointed." "Mother," Victoria growled, "I don't want to get married." No, dear, marriage is important. To you and to our kingdom. Your father has given you the freedom to pick a groom for yourself. He has been very patient in this matter, but you know about your father, he is not a patient man." Victoria could only sigh. To be honest, she did not want to marry, but she was unable to disagree with her father too. She had been telling them she will find a man who is worthy of her, yet she barely even tried to. "But how could I marry someone I don't even know? Every man I met till now is weaker and inferior to me in every aspect. I married your father without knowing him, honey, and that's the best decision I've ever made. You can't keep avoiding this matter, saying they are weak and inferior to you. No one can or will be stronger than you, Victoria. You have the cosmic energy running in your veins. I think the young men we found might be the best fit for you. They are stronger than you, but they are not weak either. If they had cosmic energy, I have no doubt they will be just as strong as you or stronger." Victoria was momentarily stunned by the last few words that came out of her mother's mouth. She creased her brows, refusing to believe that not one but two men existed who could be stronger than her. Granted, she had cosmic energy, but even before absorbing cosmic energy, her cultivation speed and the purity of the energy in her body shook the entire Azer continent. She was deemed a once-in-lifetime prodigy, and many even compared her to the Hunt family prodigy. "Who are they?" Edith's curiosity got the better of her. "Both of them hail from the Elon continent. One of them is a guardian. Our contacts in the Guardian Guild have informed us he is a rising star with unlimited potential. They believe he has reached core formation stage level 10 recently." As Queen Valeria was describing the candidate, Edith's heart started to beat faster and faster. It felt as if her heart was pounding against her chest. "He is kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. General Booth has accessed the battles he went through and said he could fight with him toe-to-toe and might even defeat him in a duel." Valeria intentionally teased Victoria without revealing the identity of the young man. She kindled the fire of curiosity within Victoria and rubbed her ego to the point Victoria would travel to Elon to meet both young men and pick one to be her life partner. Who does this remind you of? Valeria chuckled. You, said Victoria. When someone wanted to describe Valeria with few words as possible, they would say the exact thing Valeria said about the young man: kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. Valeria failed to notice a tear rolling out of Edith's eyes. Do you want to know his name? Valeria teased Victoria. The young girl nodded her head wordlessly, telling her mother to stop teasing her and reveal his name. Noah Winston. Edith's tears hit the ground as soon as Valeria uttered the name of the man whom Edith was in love with. Chapter 463. Victoria chooses her groom. Not only Edith but also Victoria was stunned to hear the name Noah Winston. Victoria was caught off guard as she did not think the young man her mother was talking about could be the same guy Edith is in love with. Her eyes automatically turned to look at Edith and saw the tears gushing out of her eyes. Victoria waved her hand, sending a sliver of cosmic energy to the orb. Right after the cosmic energy reached the orb, Valeria's figure vanished into thin air and the orb lost its glow. As soon as Valeria disappeared, Edith collapsed down. She closed her face with her hands and started to cry. Edith. Victoria knelt beside her best friend, wrapped her arms around her shoulder and pulled her close to her. I don't know what to do, Edith sobbed as her voice stuttered. Hey, you don't have to do anything. Stop crying. Victoria tried to console her. She wasn't in her usual cold self. How could she when her best friend was crying for the first time in many years? Edith sobbed continuously for 15 minutes, and no matter what Victoria tried to say or do, she could not stop Edith from crying. It's okay. Edith opened her hands, revealing puffy red eyes and a pale face. She quickly wiped off the tears and tried to let out a smile. I'm used to not having things I love. You can have him, he will take good care of you, he's really a good guy. Surprisingly, Victoria slapped the back of Edith's head. You dumb silly, who said I'm going to choose Noah? No offense, but I'm not going to share my husband with you or anyone. Looking at Edith's dumbstruck face, Victoria sighed before smiling. Mother said 2 candidates, idiot. If I have to choose one, I will choose the other one. I bet mine is better than yours, she joked to make Edith truly smile again instead of the fake one on her face at the moment. But if shoot, Victoria closer her lips with her hands. If I agree to marry someone else, I don't have to marry your lover boy. Edith was saying something, but due to Victoria's hand on her mouth, her words became inaudible. Victoria removed her hand as Edith stared at her with watering eyes. You would do that for me? Once again Victoria slapped Edith on the head. Idiot, I would do anything for you. Don't you know? Before Victoria could finish her sentence, Edith leaped at her, hugged her and squeezed Victoria. How dare you think I will join his harem, huh? Victoria asked playfully. He said he will treat all of us equally. If you enter the harem, it's goodbye equality. You will kick us out, Edith purred. That does sound like me, Victoria chuckled as the two girls remained in each other's embrace for a couple of minutes. Then only Victoria remembered that she put her mother on the hold. Mother is still waiting. Oh, Edith almost squealed when she remembered about Valeria. She quickly let go of Victoria, stood up and fixed her face in her dress. Just like before, Victoria sent a sliver of cosmic energy to activate the orb. Everything okay, dear? Valeria's figure appeared in the room and asked. Yes, Mother, someone came to meet us suddenly. Ah, Valeria pouted. I thought you cut the connection because you were shy. Victoria couldn't help rolling her eyes. Mom, have you met me? Teach your friend to be shy, Edith, she will need it. Valeria turned her gaze towards Edith. I have a better chance of teaching a cow to bark. Auntie Valeria burst into laughter, and so did Edith, who felt lighthearted after Victoria promised not to take Noah from her. Surprisingly, Victoria too chuckled with them. Now if you finished making fun of me, tell me about the other one. Mom. Valeria was surprised by Victoria's sudden interest in knowing the brides. Before this, Victoria would either ignore her or leave the room if she opened the topic of marriage. Valeria wasn't going to waste this moment by pondering why the sudden interest. The second guy is more of your father's choice, he is rather what the right word. Valeria rubbed her chin for a moment, searching for the right word in her mind. Insensitive, she said, and continued, not forgiving as Noah and sometimes ruthless. He is not a noble like Noah, and our spies failed to find any solid information about his origins. However, your father doesn't seem to care about his origins because of what this young man has achieved by himself in a short amount of time. When Valeria was talking about Noah, she had a bright smile on her face. That smile was nowhere to be found on her face now. He went from foundation stage to core formation stage level 10 within a year. You won't believe how he became a king. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. Valeria began to narrate everything from the beginning to Victoria except one thing which she kept to herself to surprise Victoria. At the end of the story, Edith was horrified and began to sweat thinking about what would happen if Victoria married this guy. Victoria on the other hand was amazed by him. He seemed to have everything Victoria wanted in her life partner. In addition, he also earned Victoria's respect. "Who is he?" asked Victoria. "We know him, dear. You may have even met him." Valeria surprised her daughter. As a mother, she preferred Noah for her daughter, but as a queen, she picked the second youngster. However, she was worried that if Victoria chose the second one, there won't be a place for kindness. Victoria wasn't exactly a kind, compassionate ruler like herself. Thus, Valeria wanted Victoria's husband to be the kind and compassionate one when ruling over Thusia. Noah seemed to be that man, not the second one. She expressed her feelings about him to Maxim, but as a ruthless king, he was leaning toward the second one rather than choosing Noah. The ultimate decision of choosing the future king of Thusia fell to Victoria. Whatever decision her daughter would make, she would wholeheartedly agree and support her, although she would be over the moon if she was to choose Noah. "Do you know the leader of our alchemy guild, the one Calvin chose?" Valeria asked as Victoria began to recall everything released to the alchemy guild. She was in seclusion when they formed an alchemy guild of their own. Everything related to talent recruitment had been taken care of by Calvin, and because he was competent, Maxim rarely micromanaged Calvin. Besides, they were at war with several kingdoms, so they had no time to access every talent brought by Calvin. Nonetheless, Victoria did hear Calvin talk about recruiting a 5-star alchemist as their guild leader and planned to topple the alchemist guild. He goes by the name Ghost. Apparently, he was also chosen by Mazeroth at the same time as U2. The moment Valeria said this, the images of the youngster Victoria met in the Black Forest flashed across her mind. "That's him," Victoria mumbled under her breath. Everything made perfect sense to Victoria, and her instincts told her the same. "Auntie, I think we've met him already," Edith sighed. Just like Victoria, she connected the dots and guessed her train neighbor and Ghost may be the same person. Edith began to tell what happened in the Black Forest and how the alchemy student mercilessly beat down the warriors to Valeria. "That does sound like him." After knowing what he did to the Princess of Bredia and the fellow competitors during the tournament, Valeria wasn't surprised by what Edith told her. As far as she was concerned, the warrior students were lucky they met him in Mazeroth instead of in Elon, where Ghost would have slaughtered them like cattle. "Since you didn't find one yourself, these two are the choices you have, dear." "I would choose - Valeria tried to persuade Victoria to choose Noah, only to get interrupted by Victoria. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that Valeria preferred Noah over Ghost, and Victoria could read her mother like a book. At first, Victoria only wanted to choose the other one instead of Noah because of Edith. But after hearing everything about Ghost, she really felt like he might be the man she hoped to be her life partner. "I will meet Ghost." Valeria was disappointed deep down, but still, she was happy that at least Victoria agreed to meet him. "After I finish my studies in Mazeroth and hopefully find the primordial flame, I can meet him." Both mother and daughter failed to consider Ghost's opinion on the matter, even after knowing that he already rejected marrying a princess. And last time a king thought about marrying his daughter to him, he ended up not only losing a huge chunk of his kingdom but also almost his daughter. Moreover, they had no idea that he was once their victim. They literally killed him and everyone he loved. Mazeroth's training ground was where mostly the students of warrior houses would train their spellcasting and close combat skills. The grounds were flat, shortcut grassy areas and were located near the herbal garden. It was overlooked by the training grounds tower and the arena. The training grounds had countless dummies enhanced to function as sentient beings for the students to simulate a real battle. Each student who wants to train had to take a silver card from the counter located at the entrance. Only through this card, a student could change the difficulty and select what type of training they want. The students could change the difficulty or select a training by establishing a connection with the card. Training grounds had a giant invisible array to enable the students to use a portion of the cultivation power. At the moment, all the students on the training ground stood aside and watched Michael break hundreds of dummies piece by piece. He was honing his close combat skills and sword skills. Since he sought badass points to settle the debt to the system and to buy some items from the store, he practiced in front of the students. More than the students were surprised by his skills, it was his emerald green robes that shocked them. They couldn't believe an alchemy student possessed such astounding battle skills. Among the onlookers was a minion of Elliot's close friend. He was watching Michael with the intention to let his leader know about him. Michael had a plan to pick a fight with the warrior students, beat the hell out of them, farm badass points, and get the hell out of Mazeroth in 18 months. Unlike outside, they wouldn't know his identity, so he had no need to worry about making enemies. His plan, however, started to work sooner than he expected. Chapter 464. Picking up a fight. The warrior's common room was located in the dungeon a couple of floors beneath the combat classroom. It was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and ceiling, from which round, reddish lamps were hanging on chains, giving the light in the room a red and silver tinge. A fire was crackling under an elaborately carved mantelpiece ahead of them, and several figures were silhouetted around it in carved chairs. The common room had lots of low-backed black and dark red button-tufted, leather sofas, skulls and dark wood cupboards. One of the wooden tables had a few daggers and scrolls on it. The walls were decorated with tapestries featuring the adventures of famous warriors ever to live. It had quite a grand atmosphere, but also quite a cold one. Currently, 5 students were occupying the sofas set in the middle of the room and discussing something. One of the 3 men sitting on the sofa was Elliot Watson, the head prefect of Mazeroth and the man who got Gaia fired. He was not in his silver armor and carrying the heavy sword. He was wearing a linen black full-sleeve shirt, black trousers and a pair of silver boots. On the opposite side of Elliot, on a couple's sofa, Elliot's best friends and also lovers, Deacon Saunders and Bethany White, were cuddling. Deacon flaunted his chiseled muscular upper body and his raven black long hair. The calluses and veins bulging out of his tan skin were common among the blacksmiths like him. Bethany White had striking red hair, an oval face and shining blue eyes. She was Deacon's fiancée and also a 4-star runemaster, as well as the heiress to the powerful White family in the Azer continent. While Deacon and Bethany were entangled in cuddling and smooching, a blonde girl in a loosely tied ponytail was making tea for everyone in the room. She would remind someone of Alicia, as the girl looked cold, unsympathetic and not at all friendly. The 5th person in the room was Diego Carter, a messy purple-haired young man wearing skinny black leather trousers and a rainbow-colored sparkling jacket. Out of the 5, he was the only one standing in the corner of the room, watching them with a tinge of jealousy painted on his face. His eyes particularly focused on Bethany while his hands were rubbing his crotch. He quickly took his hand off of his crotch when one of his minions entered the room. "Oh," the minion was surprised to see the head prefect in the room. "Hey, Elliot," the minion stuttered. His eyes were desperately searching for Diego until they landed on Diego. "Boss, you have to see what's going on in the training grounds." The minion tried to lower his voice, but all of them heard him. "What?" Diego rolled his eyes. He was quite annoyed by his minion's untimely entrance. "There's an alchemist showing off by breaking the dummies." "So?" Diego once again rolled his eyes. The dummies were put to hardest difficulty. As soon as the minion said this, everyone turned their gazes at him. Deacon and Bethany stopped smooching, Erica halted brewing the tea, and Elliot adjusted his spectacles. "Are you fucking with me right now?" Diego bore his teeth like a mad dog, which made the minion take a step back. "Of course not, he's still at it. You can't understand the rest of this and on the L world. COM platform. Did I hear you correctly? Is he destroying the dummies which were put on the hardest difficulty, or is he getting his ass kicked by the dummies?" The minion frowned. He was sick of Diego and his attitude. Only because being a friend of Elliot's friend had some advantages in Mazeroth, he would have stopped putting up Diego's shit a long time ago. "Yes, stupid deaf motherfucker, he's the one kicking ass." The minion wanted to speak these words. "He is destroying the dummies. Until I was there, he didn't even get a cut from the dummies." Unfortunately, he could only speak these words. "That's really surprising." Deacon spoke in a thick voice. "Bullshit," Diego rebuked. "When was the last time some tried the hardest difficulty dummies and left the place unscathed? Especially lowly alchemists who can't even fight a wild boar." Diego grabbed the minion's collars. "They are not inferior to us, Diego." Elliot's deep voice made Diego let go of the minion's collars. "If anything, they are superior to us." Elliot stood up, walked to the minion and fixed his robes. "With training, an alchemist or a runemaster or a blacksmith can become a fearsome warrior." Each word escaped his mouth clear and sounded like a bell chiming loudly. "Like Deacon here." Elliot looked at Deacon and continued, "But if history has taught us something, not a single student of Warrior House specialized in a rune mastery, alchemy, or smithing." As he was talking, he went to Erica and took the cup of tea. "To be a warrior, one must respect another. Respect is earned." Elliot, not asked. Diego rebuked once again. Elliot just smiled at his snarky comment. "Yes, respect is earned, but you have to give respect to get respect." Diego gritted his teeth, full under on a world. COM platform. Why are we even talking about this? What if an alchemist is beating the dummies? Deacon did it, Elliot did it, and for God's sake, you did it so many times. Bethany tried to defuse the situation as usual. They all knew Diego was jealous of Elliot and hated him for his strict principles. If it was someone else, they would have thrown off Diego like a piece of trash, but not Elliot. He always tried to teach Diego better no matter how many times Diego failed him. Don't put me and a lowly alchemist dog on the same level. Diego snickered, raising his voice at Bethany. Deacon did not like the way he talked to Bethany, but before he could say something, Erica interjected. You are overreacting, Diego. Her words were like pouring fuel into the burning fire. And you, Erica's cold gaze landed on the minion. He shuddered to look at her sharp gaze. Get out of here, you've done enough. The minion immediately ran away from the room. Can we go back to what we were doing, baby? Deacon said, kissing her neck. Seeing the girl he loves cuddling and smooching in front of him with the guy he hates the most made Diego's blood pressure soar through the roof. Ever since Deacon and Bethany got engaged, Diego lost it. Elliot knew that Diego was in love with Bethany since they were little. However, Bethany chose Deacon and Diego asked Elliot to break off their engagement only to be denied by Elliot. Not only did Elliot refuse to help Diego but also told him to move on. I will show you overreact, Diego growled before storming out of the room. For Diego, who craved Bethany's attention, anger was the only thing that earned him her attention. Hence, he voluntarily picked up fights with fellow students. Elliot was widely respected by the students of all houses, and only because Diego was his friend, many did not complain about his behavior to headmistress Kayla. Bethany was unable to continue smooching when her friend walked out of the room furiously. She stood up to follow him behind, and so did Deacon. After the three of them left the room leaving Elliot and Erica behind, she came to his side. How long you're gonna put up with him, Elliot? Asked Erica, putting her hand on Elliot's shoulder. Until he sees the errors in his ways, he said as he walked towards his room to wear his uniform. I don't think it's time sooner, she said with a cold face. Love is a powerful force, Erica. It can bring out the best or worst version of oneself. In Diego's case, it's the latter. Oh boy, you are really good at this. Michael was ripping the arms off a dummy when he saw Gilrine descend from the sky beside him. Michael momentarily paused the training to greet the big man. They are just too weak, Michael calmly said and rubbed the blood on his knuckles on his robes. The latest _sodies are on the L World. Xenoam website. Gilrine was stunned. Somehow Michael's words didn't look like boasting. After all, Gilrine could see the mountain of dummies lying on the ground nearby. You finished training? For now, I am waiting for someone. Gilrine saw a light grin emerge on his face. He looked around to see only students gawking at him, bewildered. The big man noticed several girls staring at him with blushed red faces. He could tell they were undressing him in their minds. Even the elven girls couldn't take their eyes off of him. Strength, power, and skills surpassed the racial thing. The students didn't resume training even after Michael finished his training, at least they thought he finished training. Just when they thought the show was over, they saw Diego arriving at the training ground, pushing the students onto the ground who stood in his way. Here comes trouble, Gilrine, who was familiar with Diego's behavior, mumbled under his breath. Finally, Michael was delighted inside. The intel Gaia gave him paid off as he expected. The troublemaker friend of Elliot had come to pick a fight with him at last. Sometimes he surprised himself when he could manipulate these people so effortlessly. He hated fights with cringe young masters like Diego. Still, the need for badass points pushed him to pick a fight with them. Michael's eyes of darkness enabled him to see through Diego's cultivation level. To be honest, Michael was disappointed to see his core strengthening stage 1 cultivation. So even if Diego was to use arch energy, Michael could mop the floor with him without breaking a sweat. Besides, his purple hair and the sparkling jacket almost made Michael burst into laughter. Diego resembled a clown, and it was so funny to see a clown looking at him with murderous intent in his eyes. Do you want to get out of here and have a mug of ale? Gilrine asked Michael. Hand over your training ground card, Diego ordered Michael. The students immediately became excited. They could sense the tension and wanted to witness Michael fight with a warrior instead of dummies. That way they could determine whether he had real battle skills or not. I am not finished yet, go back to your counter. Michael pretended not to know Diego and treated him like a servant. Gilrine almost spat out to see Michael shooing him away like a puppy. Diego's anger exploded within him. As Michael turned his back on Diego, he growled, Don't you know who I am? Michael ignored him as though he did not hear Diego. He was intentionally pissing off Diego for amusement. I am talking, you asshole. Diego walked towards him, bridging the gap between the two. Visit to L World. Discover _new novels. Why don't we all take a deep breath, huh? Gilrine tried to defuse the situation even though he could tell there is no reasoning with Diego. Chapter 465 Sudden Duel. Those who were studying in Mazeroth since they were little knew about Diego's latest change in behavior and expected trouble. Those who didn't, however, curiously stared at the scene to see what was going to unfold. Diego couldn't believe a newbie was ignoring him completely. Great insult. The rule of no duel between students prevented Diego from venting his anger on the alchemist. The giggles and chuckles reaching his ears fanned the flames of his anger. Once again, Diego menacingly bore his teeth at Michael. "I challenge you to a duel," Diego exclaimed, pointing at Michael. Still, Diego's challenge was unable to draw Michael's full attention. Being ignored in front of all the students as well as his crush did not go well with Diego. If it wasn't for the rule, Diego would have already cast a spell and initiated the battle. His eyes began to twitch along with his cheeks, in overwhelming anger brewing inside. On the other hand, Michael resumed the training as several dummies materialized before him to fight. "Go play with someone else," Michael talked to Diego as though he was talking to a child. Plus, he sounded slightly annoyed by Diego, which made some giggle. "Good, at least now I know your pathetic skills are limited to dummies, dummy," Diego snickered as he shot out a bullet of spit onto the ground. He meant it as a sign of hostility, yet Michael remained uncaring. Diego's anger was soaring through the roof. While the tension between Michael and Diego was gradually rising, the combat Professor Steinmeier made an appearance. She gracefully descended from the sky. "What's going on here?" asked Gaia with a frown, looking back and forth at Michael and Diego. When her piercing gaze landed on Diego, her frown darkened. The source of this under-chapter, L-World. Zone. The students became stiff in front of her. Although Diego was on the verge of losing his mind, he was still not crazy enough not to give the respect a professor deserved. Professor Steinmeier, even Gilrine, took the position of standing at ease as though he was a soldier and she was his general. "Professor, I want to challenge him for a duel," Diego said with gritted teeth. Gaia could literally hear his teeth gnashing against each other. She could have simply said yes as per the plan, but she turned to look at the pile of dummies for a moment. "I assume you did this?" she asked Michael, pretending not to know. Michael responded with a simple nod as she turned her gaze back to Diego. "Let me be clear, you want to have a duel with an alchemist?" The students could hear the amusement in her voice. "If he's not a chicken," Diego growled. He had absolute confidence in his ability. He was after all a prodigy who has yet to lose a duel. With or without arch energy he would win, at least he thought like that. After hearing Diego, she almost burst into laughter. She trained Michael in Serpent Mega, one of the deadliest combat styles in the world, and recently she was having a hard time coping with him. She rarely landed a punch or kick on him. Yet, the clown-looking kid was asking Michael for a duel without having any idea of his skills. The funny thing was, Diego had the chance to back off after witnessing what he did to the hardest difficulty dummies, which could give a battle-hardened core-strengthening stage warrior a run of their money. "I will allow it under one condition." Gaia gracefully walked toward Diego with her hands behind her back. "No spells, no runic armaments, visit L-World." Calm for a better understanding experience, Diego snicked, showing his confidence. "It's not fair," Michael calmly spoke. The students quickly started to speculate and guessed he was trying to back off. Branding him as a coward and a show-off was easier to accept than the fact an alchemist was better than them in terms of combat skills. "Don't say you're having cold feet," Diego revealed a menacing grin onto to be shocked by Michael once again. "It's not fair for you. You would have had a tiny chance of making me break a sweat." His words contained arrogance, dominance and confidence. For most of the students he looked extremely arrogant, but for Gilrine, something told him that he had the means to back his words. Of course, in Gilrine's entire life, he had never seen an alchemist battle a warrior student and win. Still, Gilrine believed that life was full of surprises. "Clear the area," her voice sounded throughout the training ground like a thunderclap. For a few moments, the students stared at her with bewildered faces. None of them expected the duel would happen then and there. It only took the students a couple of minutes to back away from where they were initially standing. Soon, the students formed a circle, and Gilrine, Michael, Gaia, and Diego remained in the circle. In the excitement to see a sudden duel, the students failed to notice Elliot, Bethany, Deacon, and Erica joining them. They stood at last as they would rather not attract any attention to them. Besides, except Elliot, the others couldn't believe in the alchemist. Elliot looked into the eyes of Michael and saw a battle-hardened warrior. In the face of a challenge, his face showed no agitation or uneasiness. He was calm, collected, and focused, which Diego lacked. "I hope you have better skills in combat than you have in fashion." Hearing Gaia's words, some students couldn't hold back their laughter. They just burst into laughter, further fanning the anger flame of Diego. She ascended to the sky to oversee the duel as a professor should. Gilrine also joined her in the air as Diego removed his sparkling jacket and threw it on the ground. Standing on the opposite side, Michael did nothing. He didn't even roll the sleeves up but waited for Diego to make his move. "I don't have all day," Michael calmly uttered these words, finally making Diego dash at him. The closer Diego got, the more excited everyone became. Many students could be seen entering the training grounds in a rush to see the commotion, but they never expected to see a duel between an alchemist and a warrior. For more _novel, visit L-World. Immediately the newcomers deemed Michael as the loser when they saw his green robes. Even the alchemists cursed at him for challenging a warrior. Outside of the Ukulun realm, the alchemists enjoyed fame, wealth, and stardom. However, in Mazeroth they were treated as low class. Part of the reason was that alchemy students failed to come up with new potions and pills to wow everyone for a couple of hundred years, while the other students invented new battle skills, runes, and forged powerful weapons. There was also the reason that compared to the other students, Alchemy House contained more subpar talents. They might be prodigies outside, but here they were considered subpar. Coupled with Professor Lane's cold treatment and constant ridicule, the House of Alchemy had long lost its former glory. When Diego was just arm's reach from Michael, he threw his fist at Michael. Despite Diego's look, his punch was extremely fast and contained enough force to dislocate the jawbone. Just as the fist was a few inches away from his face, Michael easily evaded the punch. Diego was surprised by his speed, yet he quickly threw a punch aiming at Michael's guts. This time was no different than the previous one, as Michael comfortably and very easily evaded the punch by just taking a step sidewards. The veins were popping out of Diego's pale skin. He was too mad. Michael, however, grinned inside, bathing himself in badass points. The constant sound of notifications ringing in his head was exhilarating for him. Deacon, Bethany, and Erica, who had witnessed Diego fight before, were completely caught off guard by Michael's reflection and speed. They had not battled Diego personally, but they saw Elliot and Diego train together. In their training, Diego would almost fight head-to-head with Elliot. Their battle would go for hours before always ending up in a draw. The trio very well knew that Elliot was holding back in the duel, so Diego would train harder and harder to win him. Meanwhile, Diego's movements evolved to be faster and faster, to the point many students had a hard time believing they were fighting without using arch energy. Each and every punch and kick Diego threw at him was precise, deadly, and elegant, which revealed the fact that Diego was taught a powerful, deadly close combat technique. If Diego fought someone else, he would have easily won. His bad luck, he met Michael, who reached 98% mastery in Serpent Mega. The normal version of Serpent Mega was deadly enough to be ranked as one of the deadliest close combat techniques. After the changes made to the technique by Michael, it evolved into something far more deadlier than any technique in the world. Because of that, no matter how fast or quickly Diego moved, Michael dodged without breaking a sweat. For Michael, it almost felt like watching a slow-motion movie. He could predict Diego's moves before even he could make them. The battle showered him with almost 30,000 badass points within a few more minutes. Since the rain of badass points was showering him with points, he decided to drag the fight a few more minutes to maximize his earnings. Arg, Diego growled as he felt more and more annoyed by the fact that he has yet to land a blow on him. Almost all the students stared at the fight with their mouths slightly opened. They were completely stunned by Michael. Right at that moment, Edith and Victoria rushed into the training grounds to see the duel. "You're right, it is him." The moment Edith saw Michael, she was surprised. She couldn't believe Victoria was right to tell her that it was Ghost who was the alchemist who pissed off a warrior. Victoria and Edith squeezed through the crowd to reach the front so they could get a better view of the battle. "If this is the best you can do, maybe you're in the wrong house." While evading Diego's punches, Michael uttered these words. They were not loud, but loud enough to reach the ears of every single student. Visit L-World. CETOM for a better reading experience, son of a bitch. Diego raged after hearing those words. Bethany was watching the battle, and the thought of him getting played by an alchemist in front of her stabbed straight through his ego and pride. Unfortunately, he failed to comprehend that Michael was just getting started. Chapter 466, Becoming a Student Again. The duel was going on for 15 minutes without either of them landing a blow on the other. As the minutes passed by, Diego gradually started to lose his stamina and breathed heavily. Tiredness was visible on his face and his moves. His fighting technique became more chaotic and less finesse. It was logical. Any fighter who couldn't touch his opponent would lose their mind and become somewhat of a wild fighter. Finally, Michael started to feel bored of evading the punches and kicks. He noticed the fall in badass points, so he decided to spice up the fight. "You really think less of alchemists, right?" Michael questioned Diego while simply evading another one of Diego's punches. He made dodging punches look so much easier. When your jaw is dislocated, a millisecond after these words reached everyone's ears, they saw Michael grab Diego's fist. Diego quickly used his other hand and tried to punch Michael only to get caught by him once again. Bang! Holding Diego's two fists, Michael headbutted him with enough force to dislocate his jaw as said. The jaw bone let out a crackling sound. Ribs are broken. Michael pulled Diego closer without even giving Diego any time to scream in pain. Following the headbutt, Michael sent his knee to Diego's rib cage. Grr! Diego growled, immediately coughing out dark blood. Nose broken, Michael bent him down before sending his knee to Diego's nose. The crunching sound emanated from Diego's face. Ouch! Gilrine couldn't help raising his brows at this point. Diego's body almost gave up. His ribs were broken, his jaw was dislocated and blood was gushing out of his broken nose. Diego's vision blurred. It took everything in him to stand on his feet. His body and mind screamed at him to give up, and the only thing that prevented him from giving up was Bethany, who was watching the duel horrified. Even Deacon, who had no good things to say about Diego, somewhat felt pity for him. Some students thought the duel went far enough and wanted the professor to intervene, only to see Professor Steinmeier enjoying the brutal fight with cookies. "You want some?" asked Gaia, looking at Gilrine. In normal situations, Gilrine would have taken the delicious buttery cookies in her hand. Considering it was not the case and shocked to see a professor act so cool instead of putting an end to the duel, he had no appetite. In fact, he lost his appetite for the ale he wanted to drink afterward. "Professor, shouldn't you stop the duel?" meekly asked Gilrine, suffering from severe concussion. The students noticed Michael finally let go of Diego and wondered what he was going to do next. After hearing what he just said, they started to have some ideas. At this moment, Diego was breathing heavily, drooling blood. One single 540 kick. That was all it took to knock the light out of Diego. The kick was elegant, fast and powerful. The kick literally sent Diego flying for a few meters before he crashed onto the ground. "You will need an alchemist and a healing potion." His voice was crystal clear. It was a statement directed to every single student who thought less of alchemy and alchemists. Even though Michael planned to specialize in every single specialization he had a special place for alchemy in his heart. After all, alchemy was his first specialization, and the first things would always take a special place in people's hearts. After everything was said and done, Michael adjusted his collars. A duel with a bully like Diego may have been cringe, yet it earned him enough points to settle the debt to the system. "Now I can stop the duel." Stuffing the last cookie in her mouth, she informed Gilrine. Then she slowly descended near Diego. Bethany was standing in the front waiting for Gaia to conclude the battle. "Pathetic." Gaia disappointedly shook her head, looking at Diego's unconscious body. "This is what reality looks like, students, except he would have been dead right now." Before concluding the battle, she spoke to the students around her. "You all take so much pride in being a warrior. But let me tell you something, out there in the real world, you're just another young master and young miss. If you value your lives, I'd recommend you not to piss off any real warrior." She emphasized the word real warrior to shame the rest of them. To be honest, the students couldn't rebuke. Many knew that if they went against Diego, they would have lost the battle with or without arch energy. Her words formed a crack in their pride and ego. "He wins." Gaia simply pointed at Michael and said. Then she poked Diego with her toe. "And take him away." As soon as Gaia said this, Bethany rushed to Diego and placed his head on her lap. She gently opened his lips, pouring the healing potion into his mouth. Case in point, the smile that emerged on Michael's face made some alchemists proud, while almost all the warriors hated him and saw the smile as a snicker. Michael couldn't care less about the students' opinions of him. As far as he was concerned, this day was extremely fruitful. He trained, earned badass points, lured an arrogant asshole into his trap, earned badass points, beat the crap out of him and earned badass points. He walked away from the training grounds like nothing happened, leaving the crowd stunned. Victoria wasn't impressed by the result of the fight because she knew Diego had no chance against Ghost. However, she liked the fact that Ghost did not take any crap from Diego. He was ruthless, humiliated his opponent to leave a permanent scar, thus breaking the opponent's spirit, and left the area like a badass instead of showing off and boasting. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. What he just witnessed really made Elliot question whether he did the right thing or not by getting Professor Steinmeier fired. To be honest, he never expected Diego to be completely trashed by the alchemist student. Diego should have at least put up a decent fight, yet what happened was the complete opposite. Elliot wondered where the alchemist student hailed from and who was his mentor. What he displayed wasn't enough for anyone to fully comprehend or figure out what kind of fighting technique he mastered. Elliot, however, was able to tell that it was an extremely powerful and deadly fighting technique. The following days were pretty much uneventful. As one would expect, all the warrior students viewed Michael as their #1 enemy, while some alchemists tried to be his friend. Some students went another step and asked Michael to marry them. Michael politely refused their proposals. Those who asked to be his friend, however, received that blessing. He would refuse marriage proposals but not friendships. Connections were just as important as gold coins. Michael knew this. To summarize, Michael made quite a lot of friends in the alchemy house, and through Ellider he also made connections with rune masters, though he failed to make any friends from the house of blacksmiths. In a blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. During these 2 months, Gaia continued teaching the students the art of combat. Everything was just a pretense to keep her job and make her look like a great professor. The last thing she would do is teach her potential enemies to be stronger. Nightmare reached the core formation level 8 from level 5. In addition, he also learned a few battle tactics from Gilrine and the magical beast professor. Meanwhile, Michael spent almost all of his time in the alchemy classroom with Professor Lane. During the classes, Professor Lane almost ignored the others and took a special interest in Michael. Professor Lane would often give the other students the task of concocting a pill or brewing a potion while giving Michael the toughest assignments, which Michael did with ease. The other students were jealous, but they would rather be ignored by Professor Lane than spend their time with him like Michael. Right at the moment, Michael and Lane were alone in the alchemy classroom as usual. They lost track of time and failed to notice the hour hand and the minute hand pointing at 12 in the clock. Use Chimera Strand, it will increase the potency and the purity, Professor Lane instructed Michael. But it'll make the potion unstable. We could use Kelpie's hair. It's common and doesn't smell like rotten eggs, Michael counter-argued with Professor Lane, which only a few had the guts and knowledge to do so. Michael had grown to like their exchange of knowledge. At first, Michael thought Professor Lane was just a 5-star alchemist and he had nothing new to teach him. However, he soon learned that he was completely wrong. Professor Lane was a 6-star alchemist. Only a few in Mazeroth knew this. Professor Lane was the reason for Michael to decide to stay in Mazeroth until graduation without leaving Akulun Realm. Knowledge was power and he was learning much more from Lane every day. Hearing his argument, Professor Lane approached the table with a bluish vial. He placed the vial on the table before him. That's why anyone with a brain should use a newt vial. It will make the potion stable. As usual, Professor Lane triumphed over Michael with his knowledge yet again. Everything he was learning from Lane was included in the next alchemy book the system recommended him to buy. The system required him to reach star level 6 if he wanted to absorb the knowledge from that book. Since he preferred not to spend 500,000 badass points on the Elven Rune, he couldn't become a 6-star alchemist. Nonetheless, he was learning so much from Lane without spending a dime. Moreover, he was getting close to Lane, thus making him another powerful ally. If he could make Lane his subordinate, he would have a powerful subordinate under him, even though Michael knew the odds of doing so were extremely slim. With a flick of his wrist, Lane took a crate of newt vials from his space ring. The crate materialized on the table. You can use them in the upcoming talent exhibition, Professor Lane reminded Michael of the Mazeroth version of the tournament. Fortunately, Michael didn't have to battle young masters but to show his skills in alchemy. Chapter 467 New Day, New Potion and New Weaponry. Hey man, how is it going? Man, can you teach me how to extract the pure essence from the alpha bush? Dude, you're a lifesaver, I did what you told me and it worked. Michael was bombarded by greetings, gratitudes, and questions the moment he came through the common room door. Contrary to his initial plan, now Michael was extremely popular among the students. He earned and multiplied his popularity by helping other students, not to make them better alchemists but to form alliances. The students were prohibited to share their identity in public while they were in the Akulun realm. However, they weren't prohibited from reuniting outside of the Akulun realm. Michael used this loophole to make friends. Every time one became his friend, Michael asked them to come to his gala at Hades. This way they wouldn't have to share their identities immediately. When they attend the gala, Michael would introduce himself and form an alliance with them and their families. This way, his influence would spread not only to Azer but also to the most powerful continent of them all, R. I'm gonna get some shut-eye, see you guys later. Michael really yawned when he was talking to them. He was so tired after pulling all-nighters for 3 days in a row. Even the Dark Lord wanted some rest. Michael's room was empty. Usually, Ellider would visit him and talk to Michael about enhancing the drones and spiders and discuss their next big project. Opening the door, he was welcomed by a messy room. The empty vials were lying all around the floor, the apparatus setup was still smoking and letting out crimson-red puffs of smoke, and jars filled with creepy-looking items as well as eyeballs of all colors. Even the walls were plastered with posters that resemble blueprints and chemical equations. In addition to the apparatus set up on the table, there were also many nuts and bolts along with several blueprints. Home sweet home. Michael's legs gave up as he collapsed onto the bed. The next thing he remembered was nothing but darkness. Michael, you have to mix burning buttons and fever buxus. No, it won't give you the vivid experience you are hoping for. New novel _chap_ are published here. L World. Calm radiant aniseed. You still have to see how much you should put inside. Forget about aniseed, you still haven't managed to find the formula to the counter-agent. Without the counter-agent, you're practically giving your enemies an ultimate weapon to be used against you. Are you crazy? You haven't even figured out the right formula. How do you plan to come up with an antidote? All these voices were ringing in his voice and having a chat of their own. His mind was working at full capacity to create a new potion that would help him in the long run. Lord Lucifer, Lord? Jeesh, I didn't think a god could sleep like this. Weird that usually he would hear his own voices argue with each other, but now he heard Eladir's voice. His eyes refused to open up. The system and the environmental scanning map would alert him if any intruders entered the room. That's how Michael figured out whether he was still dreaming or it was Eladir who entered the room. Either way, he wasn't going to wake up just yet. It seems like he still hasn't figured it out. Eladir sat on the chair, taking out several empty parchments from the drawer. He was scribbling on the parchments, trying to come up with perfect runes to enhance Lucifer's armor and their new project. What is this? Among the parchment, one parchment had gray and blue lines on it. He opened it up curiously to see what was inside. They had been discussing the design for weeks without being able to find the right one. He was surprised by what he saw, the design. Eladir realized Lucifer finally figured it out. The tubular-shaped device was fitted with 4 wheels, a complex wiring, numerous rings of copper inside the device and mini pipes attached to every single ring that could be seen on the parchment. Wow, he finished it. Eladir was more excited than he thought. When Michael said they were going to build a long-range mortar for Old Bertha, Eladir deemed it a simple task. Then they started to work on the design. That's when they realized that building a mortar that's capable of firing powerful mini-torpedoes powered by arch energy absorbed from the Stormville crystals. Of course, they couldn't forget the ability of the torpedoes fired from mortar to track their target using heat signature. If they managed to build the mortar successfully, they could modify the cannons to adapt to the revolutionary technology. By that time, the cannonballs fired from the cannons would hit the target with 97% accuracy. Updated _ at World. Thanks to Michael's recent upgrade to the 4-star inventor trait, he was able to build a mortar. The challenge was to integrate Eladir's runes, which would absorb the arch energy from the Stormville crystals and transfer the energy to the ammunition. Eladir had to come up with new runes to pinpoint other ships using the heat they radiate. Now that the design for the mortar has been done, it was his job to come up with the runes. You two are still on that? Eladir felt a chill running through his spine when he suddenly heard Gaia's voice. He quickly turned back to see her strolling into the room as she owned the room. She closed the door before Eladir could ask what the hell was she doing in their room. Then she walked straight to the bed. "Aw, look at my cutie pie." She sat on the bed beside her sleeping fiancé. She took his head onto her lap before gently combing his silky raven black hair. "Shimmer dust, goes, with Michael was mumbling in his sleep. Isn't he cute?" She was melted by his cuteness and couldn't help showering his face with kisses. Eladir was still in shock seeing her smooching with Michael in the middle of a day in a student's room. She was jeopardizing not only herself by being here but also the two of them. The troubled look on his face was visible through the dark lines on his forehead. "Quit worrying, half-elf. I'm conducting a room-to-room search to ensure the rules are being followed," she chuckled while saying those words. Eladir sighed, thinking how much she was abusing her power to get what she wants and what they want. His frown soon turned to a peal of laughter. "I have 15 minutes, she wrapped her hand around him to transfer the scented warmth from her. Eladir knew there was no point arguing with this woman, she was a wraith after all. While he was picking his brain to create entirely a new rune, Lucifer was getting kisses from a pretty girl and playful headbutts as though she was a lamb. Their relationship reminded him of the relationship between him and Gaia's ancestor Edwina Wraith. He would give anything to see her one more time. Nonetheless, it was heartwarming to see her descendant has found someone who truly loves her. The more Eladir spent time with Lucifer, the more he realized how wrong the Sky Hall was about him. He heard Lucifer's side of the story and realized that Sky Hall actually pushed him onto the path to become the Dark Lord. He had no choice. Even if he strayed away from his path and decided to live peacefully, they wouldn't let him. They would chase him to the end of the world. For more _novel, visit World. Xiom, did he eat something? Gaia asked Eladir. How would I know? Eladir responded while drawing the new runes on the parchment. The sooner you two finish whatever you two are doing, the better. We might soon. Eladir turned back with the parchment containing the design for the new mortars. He finished the design of the new mortars. Elidie handed over the parchment to Gaia as she stared at the design for a few moments, then a look of surprise emerged on her face. Her eyes widened. So they can really track the target shit and destroy it? Eladir nodded. Yes, I'm close to creating the required rune. The only catch is, we will need a huge amount of the crystals you showed me. A weapon like this wouldn't come so easily, so what Elidie said wasn't a surprise for Gaia. Speaking of crystals, I need an update on the new mining machine we asked Caius to build. They now fully controlled the Stormville mountain and were mining the crystals in full force. Yet, the process was extremely slow and inefficient due to a lack of advanced mining tools. To solve this issue, Michael designed new hydraulic rock drillers and pulley systems. Caius was tasked with finding engineers and scholars to transform the blueprints into actual machines. Due to the sensitivity of the task, each and everyone who had been working on the project was given a pendant attached to the spider. The spiders were constantly watched by Azazel, and if anyone let out a word about the project, they would be immediately killed by the spider. Until now, no one dared to utter a word, partially due to the fact they were being paid in hundreds of thousands. The Southerners valued gold coins more than anything, so it was easy for Caius to keep them in line. Plus, Michael's business endeavors were extremely fruitful. He was earning millions through the Hades and Majestic. The pirate fleet under Corey and Maxine had been turned from pirates to sea guards. If a merchant ship carried valuable cargo, they could either pay 30% or be sent back to whatever they came from. On their way back, they might or might not be attacked by pirates and lose all the cargo, and these pirates may or may not be connected to Maxine. Almost 98% of the merchants chose to pay 30% rather than face the wrath of pirates. At first, the pirates were reluctant to change, but after tasting loot they got by without even raising a finger enticed them. Now they were happily working as border patrol officers and getting what they wanted by negotiating instead of battling. Full _new episode on the World. See the one platform. So are you going to show any new runes in the talent exhibition or ignore it like him? Gaia asked as Eladir pondered about the upcoming talent exhibition for a few moments. I think the last thing we want is to make Sky Hall stronger. Talent exhibitions do just that. Chapter 468 Live feed from Alpha Guardian's warship. You sleep well, human, I will see you later, said Gaia, gently placing a soft kiss on Michael's forehead. The 15 minutes flew by in a blink of an eye. She hated to leave him, yet she had no choice. When we are gonna leave this place? That was the question running in her mind for some time. Because of her job and his role as a student, they couldn't spend time with each other as they used to. 8 months were gone, and 10 months remained until he could graduate and leave this place for good. I love you, Michael said before she could stand up and leave. I love you too, she whispered into his ears. Then she left the room, but not without ruffling his hair playfully. Almost 3 hours later, Michael opened his eyes. There was still exhaustion in his eyes. When he woke up, he noticed Eladir was attaching a parchment to the wall. Then he assessed the system for a second to look at the time. It was 4:30. Fortunately, he had no classes for the day, so he had some free time to spare. How is it going? Michael rubbed his eyes to adjust his sensor to the light. You're awake, Eladir exclaimed as he continued to draw some symbols on the parchment in front of him. They had their curtains closed, so the room remained always gloomier and dark. Right at the moment, however, the room was getting brighter and brighter. In addition, there was also a low-pitched whistling sound emanating from the parchment. Michael's sleepiness quickly disappeared as he strolled toward Eladir. Alas, I finished it, Eladir proudly exclaimed, looking at the purple rune on the parchment. For Michael, the rune resembled the symbol of Gemini. Only the symbol before him was letting out a bright purple glow. This part can and will absorb the arch energy from the crystals and send it to the mortar. Eladir ran his finger on the crescent-shaped top part of the symbol. Then he moved his finger to the bottom of the symbol. The auto-targeting using heat signatures, this part is responsible for that. All we need now is to build the device and test it out on a target. He willed the system to take out a spy cam from the system storage. The next second, the spider materialized on his palm. He pointed at the spider's eyes to the wall. Azazel, are you getting this? He connected his earpiece with Azazel, full _novel on World. Yes, my lord. Should I give this recording to Master Jonah? Every time Michael wanted to transfer the blueprint from Akulun to the outside world, he would use the spider to record the contents which could be seen and recorded by Azazel. The demon butler would hand over the recording to Jonah. He was responsible for drawing the blueprints on parchment and sending them to whoever Michael asked him to. Communication between him and Azazel remained undetected by Mazroth's security arrays. However, the system warned him that with its current level, it's unable to send items such as parchments, runes and herbs from Mazroth to the outside world. Luckily for Michael, Jonah proved to be great at replicating blueprints. "What are you gonna do about the rune?" "He won't be able to copy this," asked Eladir. "We need to wait until after the talent exhibition," Michael nonchalantly said. "You mean the break?" "Yeah. At that time we can get out of here and finish the mortar." While he was learning from Lane, Michael heard that the students will get a 1-month holiday. Of course, Lane seemed against the idea of giving the students a break. His exact words were, "They are already buffoons with acorn-sized brains. Breaks will only reduce the size of their brain further." Fortunately, Lane was not responsible for the holidays. It was up to Headmistress Kayla, and she saw no reason not to give them a break. Michael planned to utilize this break to get out of Akulun realm and see how things are outside. "Lord Lucifer," Michael's train of thoughts was interrupted by Azazel's voice in his head. "You should take a look at this live feed." Michael was able to sense the acute amusement in Azazel's voice. The demon butler rarely showed any feelings other than being calm and collected. Therefore, when Michael sensed the change in his voice, he was more than curious. He quickly waved his hand as a 36-inch dark mirror appeared before Eladir and him. The mirror hovered over to the wall and attached itself to the wall. Full_out current_novel on L World. The interior of the war room in Alpha Guardian's airship was rather simple. The circular room had one door on the east side, a large round stone table in the center, and above the stone table was a chandelier to light the table below. One could count 11 stone chairs around the table. At the moment, a golden-haired elf and 2 humans dressed in red metal armor with golden engravings occupied the chairs. The 2 soldiers looked pale. They almost looked as though they had just come out of the shower. They couldn't help sweating uncontrollably, mainly due to the fear of what was going to happen to them when the Alpha Guardian returned from the headquarters. The golden-haired elf was Tyriana, the best friend and the second in command to the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. The trio had no clue that another entity is in the room and transmitting everything they do and talking to the Dark Forest. The Battle of Hades concluded when the Alpha Guardians appeared with her soldiers. They took all the ninjas sent to attack everyone in the Hades. Michael wanted to kill many and take a few as prisoners so he could interrogate them to find out who sent them in the first place. His plan was rudely interrupted by the Alpha Guardians. Although he failed to take the ninjas prisoners, he left a spider on each of the survivors. The Alpha Guardian beamed up everyone to her warship. Without her knowing, the spiders infiltrated every corner of the warship and sent Azazel a live feed ever since. "What do you mean you lost them?" Tyriana slammed the stone table in anger. "My lady, we found this in the safe house." The soldier who had a tall stature, silver hair, and blue eyes placed a metal card on the table. He then rotated the table as the card reached Tyriana. Her vengeful eyes finally moved from the soldiers to the black card in front of her. She took the card. It didn't feel heavy or anything. There was nothing on the card except the letter D was embossed in crimson red. The card immediately reminded her of Lucifer, but then he always used the letter L, not D. Still, she couldn't dismiss the troubling thought that Lucifer may have captured someone far more important to them. Magnir, Tyria cast a spell as a bright light enveloped the card. The light then slowly hovered over to the air above the table, forming the enhanced image of the card. The image took the form of a holograph. The 2 soldiers stared at the card while Tyriana pointed her finger at the card, drawing a few symbols in the air. As soon as she stopped drawing the symbols in the air, a red smudge that resembled a fingerprint appeared on the card, just beside the letter D. "That's blood." Tyriana's brows creased. "But we didn't see any signs of battle or blood stains in the safe house?" The other soldier, who wore the same armor but had golden hair and an oval face, responded to Tyriana's words with a mix of shock, doubt, and confusion. "Were you able to locate the handler or any of the team members' orb?" Tyrion asked while still looking at the blood smudge on the card. "We tried, but to no avail, my lady. All of their communications orbs are offline," the silver-haired soldier answered. Following his answer, Tyria continued to draw some symbols in the air. Unlike before, nothing changed. Updated_at L-World. This is serious. We must find her." The anger in her eyes was replaced by concern. "I need everything you have on her target on my table within the next hour, got it?" The soldiers stomped the ground, saluting her. "Yes, my lady." they left the room leaving the sound of heavy thuds and Tiriana. For the next hour she analyzed the card using every rune and spell she had in her arsenal. Yet she found nothing. No clue, no hint, no marks of any kind to locate whoever left the card. "I have to tell Tanulia," she mumbled under her breath. Tanulia was known to Michael as the Alpha Guardian elf who he met in Hades. Azazel had never seen Tanulia in the warship after she brought the ninjas. According to the Guardians he eavesdropped on, Tanulia left for the Guardian Guild headquarters in Ar for some important meeting with the other Alpha Guardians. An hour later, the two soldiers came into the room carrying a small crate containing numerous parchments. "This is all the information about the Operation Desert Eagle, my lady." The silver-hair soldier placed the crate on the table, took the parchment out of it one by one, placed it on the table and rotated the table once again. "Leave," Tyrion uttered an order. Usually her voice would have sounded gentle and melodious, now however, it sounded stern and intimidating. "Yes, my lady." The soldiers lingered no longer as they quickly rushed out of the room before they suffered the wrath of Tiriana. After the soldiers left the room she opened the parchments one by one. Magnir, every time she opened a parchment she cast the spell. Then, the bright light enveloped the parchment before forming an enlarged holographic image of the parchment in the air above the table. Each holographic image hovering in the air contained a drawing of either a man or a woman. Michael, who was witnessing the scene through the spider, immediately recognized not one but two new _chap_ or pub on L-World. That's Peyton." He saw Peyton in the mirror before him. Then he noticed another familiar face. Although she too had blonde hair like Peyton, she was far more prettier than Peyton, Sabrina Winston. Chapter 469 Vampires. Michael was flabbergasted to see Sabrina on the missing person list. Several questions such as what was she doing with Guardians? What was their mission? Where is Noah? Where did they go? Appeared in his mind. Looking at the change in his face, Elidor asked, "You know her?" Michael nodded. "That, my friend, is the future Supreme Guardian's little sister." Elidor was visibly surprised. He didn't think Lucifer would know who the next Supreme Guardian is. As though Michael guessed his next question, he smiled at Elidor. "Killing Noah is out of the question, Elidor. That old smoke made sure that never happens. At least it will not happen until I get stronger." By stronger he meant upgrading the system. To upgrade the system to version 5.0 he needed a whopping amount of 600,000 badass points. The system required him not to act against Noah at least until he upgraded the system to version 8.0. He really wondered what the hell Andreas did for the system to be so careful and cautious. "Which one? Andreas MacLeod?" Elidor asked as Michael nodded. "Do you know him?" Michael turned his gaze away from Sabrina's face to Elidor. He felt curious and wanted to know about the famous Supreme Guardian Andreas MacLeod. "Never met him. But I heard he was a real hard ass and a prodigy. So this Noah person, how much does he know about you?" Elidor rubbed his chin. "Not much. I saved his family once or twice. He definitely has no idea about my identity. If he does, the entire guild would be at my doorstep the next moment." Michael chuckled. They saw Tiriana scroll through every single parchment on the table. Michael counted 11 missing people including Sabrina and Peyton. Several minutes later, Tiriana waved her hand as another holographic image containing a man's face and details such as name, cultivation level and threat level appeared above the table. "Visit L-World. Seat OM for a better reading experience." Victor. Michael saw the face of a short brown-haired man with a muscular build. He had a great memory. Hence he recognized the man. Almost 16 months ago, he met the man when he visited Phoenix Island for the auction. He was one of the core strengthening stage warriors who received special treatment from Lord Julius. After offending Julius by killing Maria, Michael used teleportation to escape with Gaia. Before activating the scroll, he left a note in Victor's pocket with the help of the system. Michael asked Victor to meet him on the note, except, to this date, Michael never saw Victor again until now. Under Victor's image he saw the word high threat level and became surprised. Victor seemed to have managed to reach core strengthening stage level 6 from level 4. His threat level was higher than Michael imagined. As he was staring at the images, another row of information appeared beside Victor. Last seen. Michael received another surprise. According to the holographic image, Victor was last seen traveling to the southern continent. The plot thickens. Michael frowned. Tiriana was collecting every bit of information she could about Operation Desert Eagle. Everyone including the leader of the operation and the help brought from the outside had gone missing. While rummaging through the parchment, Tiriana heard the door suddenly open. She almost jumped back in sudden shock. Her heart calmed down when she saw her best friend and the Alpha Guardian, Tanulia Vauren, enter the war room. Tiri, Tanulia, instead of addressing her as Alpha Guardian like the rest of the Guardians, Tiriana called her by the name, stood up and hugged her tight. I heard about what happened. It's not your fault, let's find them, Tanulia patted Tiriana on the back. Everything said and done, the motherly expression on Tanulia's face disappeared. Instead, a stern, dominant, pissed-off look replaced the previous expression. What do we know about the target? Tanulia used her dominant Alpha Guardian voice. Victor Hagen, last known cultivation stage core strengthening level 6, last seen traveling to the southern continent in a merchant ship. Tanulia listed the basic information about Victor. 15 months ago, several young men had started to disappear in the outskirt villages of Draddle and Kethen. A few weeks after the disappearance, their bodies were found, mutilated and... Tiriana paused for a moment, and completely drained of blood in the forest surrounding the villages. The number of disappearances increased, and every time a week after, the bodies turned out to be as same as before, mutilated and drained of blood. Any similarities among the victims? Asked Tanulia. There is only one, the bite mark. Every single victim had a bite mark on their lower neck. Vampires? Michael was taken aback by surprise. What she said matched the description of vampire killings. However, he didn't know this world had vampires. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here, L-World. COM, this matter was brought to the guild's attention by Kethen's king, Porter Forbes. Through a thorough investigation conducted by Guardian Captain Gerard Atkins and his team, they found clues connecting Victor to the victims. They sent a team of guardians, but they were all killed. Tiriana paused for a moment and continued. They were all killed in the same manner, mutilated, completely drained of blood, and all of them had bite marks. Tanulia listened to Tiriana, showing no visible expression on her face. However, she was raging inside after hearing that Victor killed the guardians. Regardless of their race, they were guardians. Killing a guardian was a crime punishable by death, and if one was to commit this crime, the hunter guardians would hunt him or her to the end of the world. Because of the threat level, Guardian Captain Gerard initiated Operation Desert Eagle and assigned Peyton as the leader of this operation. Michael curiously waited for the part where Sabrina got involved in this. She was supposed to be studying at Holy Trident Academy. There was no reason for Sabrina to mingle with the Guardians except for her brother. However, something told Michael that Noah wasn't involved in this. If he did, Sabrina would have gone missing. Peyton recruited these Guardians and, with a flick of her wrist, Tiriana brought the images of 10 Guardians before Tanulia. She then hesitated for a second. Noticing the reluctance shown by Tiriana, Tanulia creased her brows. What is it, Tiri? The last member she recruited is Sabrina. Tiriana waved her hand as Sabrina's image appeared directly in front of Tanulia. Sabrina Winston, Noah's little sister. As soon as Tiriana spoke these words, Tanulia's composure completely changed. She slammed the stone table as the images started to flicker. What? Tanulia's roar echoed through the war room. What the fuck was she thinking? Tanulia's creamy white skin turned red along with her eyes, which now looked as red as fire. She recruited someone who's not even a guardian? She slammed the stone table once again. Seeing Tanulia's outburst, Tiriana took a step back. Her legs were uncontrollably shaking because she had never seen Tanulia this furious before. That bitch is expendable. But not her, Tanulia pointed at Sabrina. If we are to lose Sabrina and Noah found out that his little sister died because of us, everything will be ruined. Michael confirmed his suspicion. Noah indeed had no idea about his sister's disappearance. What's up with that girl? In trouble? Michael shook his head disappointedly. Despite his feud with Noah and the Supreme Guardian, Michael had a good impression on everyone in his family. Diana and Ethan always treated him like another son. Imelda and Natalia was cool too, but now after the tournament, Michael had a feeling that they might not treat him as they used to. Despite Michael nearly beating Andrews to death, Sabrina acted as though she was his little sister in front of him. Michael too liked Sabrina. Visit L-World. COM for the best experience regardless. Now it seemed as Sabrina Winston got herself into trouble yet again. This time Michael would not be there to save her, but if only Michael knew she was his little sister. We have to find her no matter what. Immediately contact every single Guardian in the southern continent. I'm authorizing Code Red. Use all and any resources. I need Sabrina found ASAP. I will contact the other alphas. Unfortunately, Tanulia took out some kind of orb, and the next moment she was beamed out from the warship to somewhere else. So Michael was unable to follow Tanulia. After Tanulia left the war room, Tiriana contacted the Guardians on the southern continent using several orbs. Her meeting with the Guardians took almost an hour. Only then, Tenulia appeared in the room once again with a golden parchment in her hand. Here, Tenulia threw the parchment to Tiriana as she cast the spell to enhance the continents. Magnir, just like before, the spell formed a light layer around the parchment before forming a holographic image of the contents above the table. The holographic image contained a black panther standing on its two legs like a human. The black panther had shiny fur, arms like humans, and wore a golden chain around its neck. "Send men to bring him to me," Tenulia ordered Tiriana. Although Tiriana had no idea who this beastman was, she had a feeling that this beastman might be the only one who could find Sabrina. On the other hand, Michael had a vague feeling that he met this Black Panther somewhere else before. "Alpha Guardian, who is this beastman?" Tiriana noticed the change in Tenulia's voice and deemed she was less furious than before, so she asked the question that nagging her brain. "I had to call in a favor from Alpha Guardian Kasim to get his help. This beastman is the best hunter in this world." Hearing Tenulia, Michael began to connect the dots. He almost made the connection, and if he was right, he didn't meet the Black Panther, but he may have met someone related to the Black Panther. "How much are we paying him?" "Hunters don't come cheap," Tiriana asked, only to see Tenulia shake her head. "Not a single coin. He doesn't want any coins, he wants a favor from me. When the time comes, I have to help him kill someone." Tyrian was stunned. She tried to change Tenulia's mind about helping the panther and killing someone. "I gave my word. When the time comes, I will help him take a life dictator with a badass system." Hunter. Loading. Adjacent universe to HBS. You can _find the rest of this _content on the L World. COM platform. Chapter 470. Logan. "Why do I have a feeling that Panther's target might be you, Lord Lucifer?" asked Eladir after Tenulia and Tiriana left the war room. "Because I killed who may have been his relative or a friend." The images of a Bengal tiger beastman flashed across Michael's mind. Jacoby sealed his fate by trying to capture Gaia, and he would have accomplished that if it wasn't for Michael's timely intervention. "We have a bigger problem now." Michael quickly cornered all his other thoughts in case the threat was as bad as he thought. He would have a crisis on his hand. It was not like Michael liked to play goody two-shoes, but if Victor was a vampire and he was in the southern continent, he might start feeling on the southerners. The southern continent was Michael's stronghold where he wielded absolute power. Michael would let nothing happen to that stronghold until he built an army on the southern continent to conquer everyone and everything in this world. Only by doing this he could fight off the great clans. "Hey Eladir, have you ever heard of vampires?" Michael almost scoffed. 2 years ago he would have laughed at the thought of vampires existing. He couldn't do that now because he was transmigrated to another world with the system. As far as he was concerned, anything was possible in this world. No, Eladir simply dismissed Michael's suspicion. However, Michael wasn't completely satisfied. There must be a whole lot of things that even Eladir, a few thousand-year-old ancient being, didn't know about. Azazel. Michael established a connection with his demon butler. "My lord," the butler responded in his utter obedient voice. "Contact everyone in the southern continent and order them to raise the security level. The villages in the outskirts must be guarded, no more reducing the strangers on the seas. They are to report to me immediately if they find anyone suspicious." While issuing orders to Azazel, he remembered something about vampires. "Be on the lookout for anyone wear dark clothes to avoid sunlight." "As you wish, my lord." After everything was said and done, Michael began his usual routine, trying to figure out the correct formula for his new potion. Even the system had no recipe for that. He was creating entirely a new potion, mixing alchemy and technology. The village of Rackdale was surrounded by lofty mountains and lush green fields. The hills were a beauty of their own, nature's beauty. Except for the name of the village, the people didn't change at all. From the time the village was founded, they grew vegetables, fruits, and other crops such as wheat, rice, and barley to support their lives. Twice a year, the crops would mature, and at that time, the village would look as though golden sheets blanketed it. Rackdale had a very little population. Most of them were farmers and the rest of them traveled with the merchants to Krilta, one of the towns in Giselle, and sold their harvest in the city to earn better. Updated _ at Elworld. So they were simple people. They eat what they grew, they wear simple clothes, and most of all, they loved each other and always stood by each other in their time of distress. There was a strong bonding between every person in the village. They were definitely not rich but very kind-hearted. Today the village was muddy, containing several puddles of water and countless footmarks due to the heavy fall last night. Currently the sun was setting behind the lush green mountains, painting the village in a mild orangey-red tint. There was always an apple tree in the village for a tired villager to sit under and relax. On the outside, the simple beauty of the village had a soothing effect on the eyes. The evening was their time to relax with their families and take well-deserved rest. However, at this moment rest was the farthest thing from them. "We need to find my husband. My son has gone missing for 3 days. I have 5 goats missing from my farm." The village didn't have many big buildings. Most of the farmer houses were simple, built with brown woods found in the nearby forest and roofed using silver slabs sold for cheap in Krilta. Except for one building, none of them could hold more than 4 people, and that building was the village leader's house. At the moment, inside a hall lit with torches, the villagers were hollering at a 7-feet hulking man. He had medium-length brown hair, brown eyes, and a goatee. The man may have looked terrifying due to his hulking body and the man-sized warhammer he was carrying on his back. He was listening to the pissed-off villagers patiently. Boom. The sound of thunderclaps in the distance indicated the approaching heavy downpour. It was ominous. "Logan, we have to put together a party and search for them." An old man with a long beard walked out from the angry, worried mob of villagers. "Yeah, you were a mercenary before everything. You can come out of retirement and help us, Logan," a woman with puffy red eyes shouted from the crowd. Their words immediately brought down some of the memories Logan desperately wanted to forget. The images of his last job flashed across his mind. The gloomy crypt, the swarming undead, the dead bodies of his group, and the man who killed everyone. Ever since that day, Logan wondered why he left him alive. No. Logan's sudden thunderous roar instantly killed the commotion in the hall. The villagers shuddered as all their faces went pale. They had never seen Logan lose his calm ever. Reeling what his outburst did, Logan took a deep breath, calming himself down. "Tomorrow we will go to Freedom Town and request King Tiberius' help." Just before the people could react to his words, a teenage boy slammed the door open. The boy was running towards Logan, completely soaked wet. His face and leather armor was smudged with mud. Visit L-World. For the best no understanding experience, Captain Rogers. The youngster mumbled. Then some of the citizens saw it. The youngster was bleeding and they saw a dagger sticking through the youngster's back. "Dewey, he's bleeding," the villagers mumbled as the youngster stumbled down. Logan immediately caught him before the youngster could hit the floor. He then gently placed the youngster down. "Dewey, what happened? Where are Captain Rogers and the rest of your team?" While questioning the young man, Logan looked at the old man, telling him wordlessly to go and bring the village healer quickly. "Found Georgie, dead. Something cough. The youngster coughed up blood. Logan gently grabbed the dagger sticking out of his back. The dagger was deep into the youngster's spine. Logan could feel it. He had enough life experience to tell that this youngster was on the verge of death, and Sue embraced the darkness. Nonetheless, Logan wanted to lessen his suffering as well as get as much information as he could. "Everyone, blood, drain, cough. Logan and the surrounding people could barely make sense of the mumbling coming out of his mouth. "Cough. Killed? Cough." The youngster began to cough up blood more and more. "It's gonna be alright, Dewey, you're gonna be alright. The healer will fix you right up." Logan smiled at the youngster, trying to make him calm down. He was a big man with a big heart, so he wanted to send the young man as painlessly as possible. "My son." All of a sudden a woman completely soaked in rainwater rushed into the room. She pushed aside everyone who stood in her way. When she saw Dewey lying on Logan's lap, bleeding and fighting for his life, she collapsed to the ground. For some reason, Logan couldn't look the woman in her eyes. He blamed himself. It felt as if he did something sooner, Dewey wouldn't have been like this. "Dewey?" The mother shouted, "What happened to you?" Oh my God. Someone help me." Her sickening cry echoed through the hall. "He said they found Georgie," another woman screamed from the crowd. "Yes. New_chap_stairs or pub_list on L-World. We have to do something and do something now. Yes." The crowd began to roar. Logan, however, didn't hear anything but the cries of a mother who is going to lose her son soon. He couldn't even imagine what she was going through. If he was to lose his wife Tessa, he would break into a million pieces. She was the only thing that kept him together and gave him a new life after the traumatic events he experienced on the undead island. Every day he had nightmares. It took everything in him to fight through the nightmares and overcome the traumatic experiences. He promised himself that he would leave the mercenary life behind. However, seeing Dewey's mother, Logan decided to take on a task one last time. "Gary, put together a team. I'm going to find Georgie and everyone." Logan stood up with a resolution in his eyes to find the disappeared villagers. Until now, 20 people in the village had mysteriously disappeared, including 3 children and 2 young girls. At first, they thought they left the village, then they thought those villagers were lost in the forest. Only when the team sent into the forest disappeared too, did they realize that something was wrong. Of course, if Logan didn't leave for Giselle to get some financial help from the Senate, he would have sent for a search party sooner. It took the temporary village leader 2 weeks to realize those people were actually missing. Logan left the hall and entered his room where he saw his wife peacefully sleeping on the bed. Her pail was illuminated in the candlelight on the stool beside the bed. Other than the bed and his wife, there was only an oak wardrobe and several roses in mud pots. He walked toward his wife. When he reached her bed, he moved aside her red hair and gently kissed her on the forehead. "Sleep well, Tessa. I will come back to you as soon as possible. It's time I find these people." She slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were tired as her skin was so pale. Looking at Logan, Tessa blacked but her eye movement seemed restricted. "I will take care of myself, Tess. Don't worry." Logan closed her eyes gently before placing another kiss on her forehead. Turning back, he walked towards the wardrobe, not to wear any new clothes but to take something he shouldn't. He was welcomed by several brown robes and skits neatly stacked as he opened the wardrobe. He opened one of the drawers where there was another set of brown robes. He lifted the stacked robes to see the empty bottom. Only he knew that it was a false bottom and lifted up the false bottom, revealing a black card and a spider-shaped pendant lying there. "Am I going to regret this?" he asked himself, thinking about what he was going to do. Logan is one of the team member who went with Ross to the Undead Island. Refer chapter 237 if you don't remember him. ***. This content is taken from L-World. Xiom. Chapter 471 Mysterious Cannibal. For a few moments, Logan just stared at the card and the spider pendant on the bottom of the drawer. He had no idea what the card and the pendant would do. He was left with this card and the spider pendant when he woke up in a dark alley of Krylta City. His instincts told him to take these items with him. He could feel in his guts that he needed these. Yet the memoirs they stirred in his mind prevented Logan from touching the card and the pendant. "I hope not to see you again, David," Logan mumbled, "or whatever your name is." Logan closed the drawer and left the room. As he walked out of the room, he saw the villagers with various makeshift weapons in their hands. Man, woman, child, every single one had some kind of weapon. The old man with a long white beard approached Logan, scratching the back of his head. "Sorry, Logan, they are all pretty adamant about following you. They all want to find what's going on here." Seeing the villagers with weapons reminded him of Ross' team. Although Logan worked with many mercenaries and saw many of them die in front of his eyes, what happened on the Undead Island stalks him to this day. He felt so insignificant and powerless in front of David, an entity who could use magic inside the void line. Ross and the team were the best of the best, yet they were no match for David. He killed them in a matter of seconds. If he had wanted, he could have killed Loga. For some reason, David left him alive with the card and the pendant. "I can't take all of you with me," Logan sighed. "We are ending this, Logan." "Yes. I am sick of this. Let's go," the villagers violently shouted. After being worried and scared, the villagers now became pissed. They decided to deal with whoever was killing and kidnapping their neighbors and friends. "It's risky and dangerous," updated undershirt L-World. "Xiomino." All the villagers shouted in unison to interject Logan. He was a good leader and the villagers respected him. That was why they were following him. However, they couldn't stand behind not anymore. Every single one wanted to go out and find the person who was responsible for the kidnappings. Looking at the resolution in their eyes, Logan realized there was no use arguing with them. "Jerry, stay here and look after Tess," Logan whispered to the old man standing behind him. The old man knew how much Logan loved his wife Tessa. It was a pity that Tessa fell sick and became paralyzed. The village healers told Logan that it was one in a million illnesses that can't be cured by anything. Many advised Logan to marry another one and have children only to get outright rejected by him. Regardless of her state, Logan loved her as he always did. "Of course, everyone wait outside. I'll be with you in a minute." After the villagers left the hall, Logan looked at the old man with a worried look on his face. The fearless leader wall he erupted in front of him crumbled down, revealing the vulnerable side of Logan. "Follow me." The old man followed Logan into his bedroom and saw Tessa sleeping peacefully. Or at least the old man thought she was sleeping peacefully. The old man saw Logan open up the wardrobe and soon, he took out a black card and a pendant. "If I don't come back, bring this to a man named H in Krylta and ask for David." Logan himself did not clearly understand the reasoning behind his order. "I have this sick feeling in my guts about this, Jerry. It's like something evil is hovering over us." Logan lowered his voice and said to the old man. Surprisingly, the old man nodded. "Me too, Logan. Do as I said. Sometimes we need one evil to defeat another." The old man didn't comprehend the meaning behind his words. Logan turned his gaze towards his wife once again. Take care of her, Logan's voice stuttered as the old man patted him on the shoulder. Visit to L-World. Discover_new novels. You should go, the villagers are waiting. Logan nodded back, leaving the hall. He only carried his warhammer on his back. He didn't even wear armor because armor would restrict his movements, thus reducing the power of his attacks. The heavy rain was pouring down from heaven as everyone was soaked wet. Nevertheless, the villagers gave no crap about the rain. They were too tired of this. At this moment, they only wanted to find the criminal and stop living in fear. Leave the children at home. Logan couldn't bring himself to lead a bunch of children into a place that might be a death trap. Most of the children among the villagers were between 12 to 15 years old. They wanted to fight, but Logan had no intention to bring them with him. The villagers took a few minutes to think about it and decided to leave the children behind. Of course, the hot-blooded kids refused and tried their best to accompany them to the forest, but no avail. Everything said and done, the villagers led by Logan made their way towards the forest. The village's hunter, Mort, followed the blood trail left by Dewey. Because of the heavy rain, the tracks were nowhere to be seen except for Mort, who was an expert tracker. With his help, they were able to follow the trail. The downpour was so heavy that to be caught unawares meant being drenched to the skin. Each drop was as large as a cartoon tear and they felt like gravity had been turned up a notch. The flashes of lightning were their only light source that lit the path before him and enabled Mort to locate the blood trail. Following the trail with great difficulty, they entered the forest far away from their village. Usually, the hunters would go into the forest to hunt for meat and pick up herbs for healers. The forest was huge, dense, and diverse. Its canopy was demanded by juniper, birch, and cottonwood, which provided just enough openings for light to pass down for a variety of ferns to flourish in the fertile soils below. Coiling branches held onto the occasional tree, and a variety of flowers, which grew dispersed and sparingly, stood out against the otherwise uniform backdrop. At the moment, on top of the twigs breaking sound, a mixture of animal sounds, belonging mostly to prowling animals, reverberated through the air, and were in harmony with the barrage of noise coming from the rain. For Logan, this reminded him of the Undead Island so much. Cornering all the thoughts about the Undead Island in his mind, he followed behind Mort. There was barely any light for the villagers to see what was in front of them. It was pitch-black darkness around. Thankfully, there were some fluorescent mushrooms glowed in a vague red color, dimly lighting the surroundings. All of a sudden, Logan quickly raised his hand as the villagers halted their steps. Logan shed, telling people wordlessly to shut up. When the villagers stopped moving and whispering to each other, they were able to hear a vague, indescribable sound appearing from a near distance. New novel _chap_ers are published here, L-World. Logan focused on the sound. The more he heard, the more it sounded like something feasting on something. Logan, Mort, the hunter who wore a cloak, called Logan silently. It doesn't sound like any animal I know. This might be what's killed Dewey and the men. If it is, we can't let it escape. These people were not strategists or geniuses. So instead of thinking that whatever killed the most trained people in their village might kill them easily, they decided to surround it, thinking they have the advantage of numbers. They didn't think that they might be outnumbered or walking into a trap. These villagers were kind of dumb and Logan knew that. Still, he had no choice. Besides, he himself was not a strategist or equipped to deal with powerful entities. The toughest challenge he faced since he became village leader was a 7-foot grizzly bear that terrorized the hunting grounds near the village. Mort, take some of them and try to lay a trap. Whatever it is, I have a bad feeling about this. The villagers moved slowly in the direction of the sound, following behind Logan. Another group of villagers followed Mort in another direction to flank whatever was making the sound and trap it. The villagers held the satchels, clubs, and makeshift spears in their hands tight. Their numbers gave them the strength and courage to face whatever was in front of them. However, their courage and strength were shattered when they saw a cloaked figure feasting on the entrails of a body. The cloaked figure emanated some kind of red mist that lit up the surroundings, and in that light, the villagers saw the dead bodies lying around. The cloaked figure slowly stood up. Its movements almost looked as though it was floating in the air. As soon as it stood up, the villagers felt a chill. This male before them had snake eyes that were shined like rubies. His thick, straight, white hair was medium length and floating out from the cloak covering his head. In the glimmer of light produced by the red mist around him, they saw his chalk-white skin, a skeletally thin body, and long thin hands with unnaturally long fingers. So much blood, so little time, the cloaked figure spoke in a clear, cold, and high-pitched voice. What are you? Logan was the first to question the frightening monster before them, since Logan had the experience of meeting another terrifying person. A cattle shouldn't ask questions. The cloaked figure let out a menacing peal of laughter. How is that young brat? I never thought he would bring his whole village for me to feast on. The villagers shuddered after hearing the cloaked figure. I assume you want to fight, although I'd recommend you not to resist. It will only make your death more painful. As he said, the figure removed his cloak, revealing his skull-like face and the two long canines that grew longer visible to the naked eyes when he grinned. Whoosh! In a blink of an eye, the cloaked figure turned himself into a mist of red. He disappeared from their sight, but they soon saw him, biting a young man's throat. H! The villagers screamed as the figure sucked on the young man. In utter fear of what they had just seen, the villagers were stunned. While they were standing still, shivering, the man drained the blood. Just like that, the youngster collapsed to the ground, but none of the villagers could recognize him anymore. He was mummified. New_chap_ or pub_ on L world. Seedom Youngblood, so refreshing. The man licked the blood dripping down his lips. Let the feast begin. Chapter 472 Greater Vampire. Seeing the young man's mummified body collapsing onto the ground, the villagers were horrified. Their courage was diminishing faster than words written in the water. He is using magic, the villagers shuddered. The grin on the man's face pushed the villagers to take several steps back. Despite their numbers and the weapons in their hands, they were not shuddering in fear. Everyone, stand your ground. Noticing the villagers were on the verge of panicking, he ordered them to stay put, although he himself was feeling the dread in his heart. Logan witnessed what a man with magic could do to highly trained soldiers. Ross and his team didn't stand a chance in front of David, a magic user, let alone these villagers. The most dangerous threat most of these villagers faced was farm rats. You can also use magic. Logan tried to establish a conversation with the man so he could formulate an escape plan. Logan realized that lives are going to be lost. Still, Logan wanted to minimize the casualties as much as he could. After hearing Logan, the grin on the man's turned colder. You think I'm stupid? No one can use magic. The man had a power that enabled him to detect lies using the heartbeat. He sensed no bluff but truth. It's no bluff. Just like you, he also used magic. Logan planned to draw all his attention toward him. This might let most of the villagers escape the area while he fights the man. He still had no idea how powerful the man was. In the best-case scenario, he would be able to fight the man for a few minutes. In the worst-case scenario, the man instantly kills him and slaughters all the villagers. Why didn't he consume you? The man was curious. As far as he knew, only his kind would be able to use arch-energy inside the void line. However, his kind would leave no witnesses alive. That's how they stayed hidden for centuries. If what Logan said was true, which seemed to be the case according to his heartbeat, the magic user let him live. That didn't seem like a man of his kind would do. Logan felt sick just by the fact this man ate those men. He cannibalized them and it was horrifying. Logan thought David was terrifying, but compared to this man-eater, he seemed normal and pleasant. By consume, if you meant eating them, he didn't. The man was shocked yet again. His kind would always consume their victims. Consuming blood and flesh was their lifeline. Without that, they would cease to exist. Instead, he offered us a chance to serve him. Logan could see the dark lines on the man's forehead getting darker and darker. He will consider a wage of war if you kill us or harm us in any way than you've already done. The man immediately snapped as he sensed Logan's lie. Lie! The man dashed at Logan like a panther. Ding! The man underestimated Logan's reflex. Logan's warhammer met the man's fingers, which now had grown into long sharp claws. Not bad, the man menacingly laughed as he jumped back a few meters. For a dead man, he said, dashing at Logan once again. This time, his speed multiplied by several folds. Logan was barely able to see him. Full_out current_novel on L world. COM ding. Logan's instincts made him raise his warhammer to defend himself. Arg! Logan growled when the man's claws scratched his bare chest. The villagers who saw their beloved leader bleed for them kindled the flame of courage in their hearts, at least in most of their hearts. A few of the farmers jumped at the man. Whoosh! 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 The villagers who tried to attack the man suddenly halted their movement. No one could notice the red lines appearing around their necks. Soon, their heads separated themselves from their neck and hit the ground with a sickening thud sound. Before the other villagers could react by screaming, the man dashed at the three headless bodies and sunk his teeth into one of the bodies of a male villager. In a couple of seconds, the body withered, completely drained of blood. Just like the youngster the man killed a few minutes before. He didn't stop with that as he grabbed the other body, sunk his teeth into the neck, and drank all the blood. He was about to consume the third villager. Logan dashed at the man with his warhammer rose up. Boom. The warhammer missed the target as the man evaded it. The ground shook a bit due to the force behind the swing. It created a tiny crater in the ground. The man was surprised by Logan's raw strength. The shock wave created by the warhammer knocked down a few of the villagers. Logan quickly balanced himself to face the man before he could kill any more of them. "Run!" Logan shouted as he dashed at the man. Logan swung the warhammer so effortlessly as though it was weightless. For a human, Logan was strong and fast. He kept swinging the warhammer to stop the man from killing any more villagers. "Silly little cow," the man snickered. The man saw Logan keep swinging the warhammer chaotically. Logan's movements were getting slower and slower. The man's grin grew wider and wider. He put one hand behind and deflected Logan's attack with the other. The man seemed pretty relaxed and toyed with Logan. Boom. Arg. You can find the rest of this content on the L World. See the OM platform. This time, the man shouted while flung into the tree several meters behind him. Logan pretended to get tired and lose his touch. Luckily, the man fell for that trick. When he dropped his defense and acted cocky, Logan utilized that moment to send his warhammer straight into the man's rib cage. Logan felt a couple of ribs being crushed by his warhammer. "Run away!" Logan once again shouted at the villagers. "Blood wave!" As soon as Logan heard these words, a wave of hot blood blasted him and the villagers away. The blood disappeared from existence as soon as it appeared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Logan felt a wave brush past his face. His instinct automatically turned his head towards the villagers. "Bastard!" Logan burned in rage when he saw the man cleaving several heads off. He sucked their blood so fast that he mummified 10 villagers within a minute. The more blood he sucked, the bigger he grew, the less he looked humane. The chalk-white skin gradually lost its whiteness and turned muddy brown. Then the red mist shrouding him faded into nothingness. They were all pretty obvious changes, but not as the extra 3 arms grew out of his back. Using his 5 arms together, he ripped off the cloak he was wearing to reveal the skinless bloody body hiding beneath the cloth. Logan felt nauseated just by looking at this horrifying monstrosity. "I'm gonna feast on all of you," the man spoke in a chilling demonic voice. Inch by inch he stepped closer to the villagers. "Fight! Run!" One group of villagers swallowed their fear and tried to fight while the other tried to escape into the woods. Logan picked himself up to fight the monstrosity even though he knew that the chances of them surviving this had grown slimmer. "Poch! Jirish!" The man halted his move as blood began to seep out of his mouth. Everyone including Logan was stunned. They then noticed pointy steel coming out of the monster's chest. Mort! Logan saw Mort, the hunter standing behind the creature drilling the steel spearing into him. Mort retrieved the spear out only to stab the monster again and again. After being stabbed through the chest several times, the monster finally drew his last breath. It collapsed onto the group. Visit to L World. Discover_new novels. It's dead? Oh God, is it really dead? Mort. The villagers were stupefied, looking at the dead monster in front of them. Some of the daredevil villagers approached the body, kicking it to see if it was alive or dead. Seeing the body did not respond, they thought it was dead and dropped their guard. Mort! Logan picked himself up with the support of his warhammer. The fluorescent mushrooms around them illuminated the fear on Mort's face, but more than fear, there was pride. "This is gonna stir up so much shit." Mort moved away from the body and walked towards Logan. And just as the crowd was surrounding the body and Mort was several steps away from Logan, Mort's head exploded into red mist. "You should have gone for the head," the demonic voice sounded. Soon the monster they all thought was dead stood up. Blood mist, all the villagers were shrouded by the red mist that appeared out from the monster. "Arg! Jirich, Aghai!" Countless screams emerged from the red mist. Somehow, Logan was able to vaguely see the monster's rampage. Thus, he leaped at the monster to stop its monstrosity. This time, Logan really swung his warhammer chaotically in the hope of hitting him one more time. "You are last," Logan heard the man's voice sound in his mind. It was more of a feeling than hearing. Logan tried to prevent the monster from killing all the villagers, yet his muscles refused to move. After savoring them, "I will travel to the village and consume your beloved wife." Logan's heart almost jumped out of his chest when he heard these words in his mind. "No," Logan screamed in his mind as the images of his wife and the loving memories he shared with her flashed across his mind. He felt desperate, trying to move his body using all the strength in him. Still his body wouldn't budge. The red mist soon died down, revealing the mummified bodies of the villagers. The monster had now grown to almost 12 feet tall. The air turned putrid, reeking of rotten eggs and blood. His human features were nowhere to be found, and now he was a pure monster. pure horrific monster. Tears rolled out of Logan's eyes. He wanted to scream, curse and yell at the monster. He would have, but no matter how tired he was, he couldn't. His mouth was shut closed and refused to move. How stupid you're imbeciles to think you can defeat a greater vampire? Visit lworld.com for a better user experience. Chapter 473. Not a subordinate material. The greater vampire hovered towards Logan with a clear intent to murder Logan. The only thing that prevented the greater vampire from doing so was the information Logan possessed about another magic user. If he was to bring Logan to his coven, he might leverage it to get back his cover. Tell me who he is, the greater vampire threatened Logan. He lifted Logan by his neck so effortlessly. A tentacle-like tongue reached out to lick Logan's face. Logan felt disgusted and sick. More than anything, Logan was worried about his wife. Half of his village was gone and he hoped those who chose to run would escape and tell the Senate what happened. You think this world doesn't need saving? Open your eyes. One day you'll realize that the good guys aren't enough to save the world. Logan's mind played the words spoken by David when they were inside the pyramid. He couldn't help regretting his decision not to join him. If he had, the villagers might have been alive. I shall ask your beloved wife then. The greater vampire grinned devilishly. His words fanned the flames of Logan's anger. He grabbed the greater vampire's arm and neck. Ayer! Logan growled as every bit of muscle in his body bulged out. The veins were popping out and trying to remove the greater vampire's arm from his neck. The greater vampire was far stronger than Logan, yet the vampire was surprised by Logan's power. Logan almost moved the vampire's arm. Just as Logan was struggling, the vampire's pointy ear twitched. Logan couldn't hear a grumbling sound amidst the heavy rain and thunderstorms. Boom! Out of nowhere, a bright beam shot out from the sky. Edge! The greater vampire screamed out loud as he let go of Logan. Arg! Cough! Cough. Logan coughed and looked up at the vampire to see him literally smoking. The vampire cried in agony, standing in the center of the light beam. Logan followed the beam's direction, only to see a giant airship hovering over them. No! The vampire's body shrunk to its previous size. The longer he stood in the light, the more smoke he radiated. Logan tried to grab his warhammer so he could kill the vampire while it was vulnerable. However, the vampire noticed his hands moving towards the hammer. New novel _chap_ers are published here. lworld.com. The vampire roared this time. It wasn't the cry of agony, but rather the cry of mustering all the strength in its body. Then with all his strength he jumped out of the spotlight into the darkness. This isn't over. These were the last words Logan heard from the monster before it disappeared into the darkness. Take the ropes. A voice sounded from the airship, followed by the appearance of ropes. Instead of grabbing the ropes, Logan crawled to the dead bodies of his fellow villagers. Tears automatically rolled out of his eyes. The pain he felt in his heart looking at the headless mummified bodies made his heart bleed. He wished things had gone differently. In truth, he never thought he would face another magic user. He thought it was a group of bandits or some criminals who were kidnapping and killing people. He thought he could take on them with the help of his villagers. Not in a million years he expected to meet a monstrosity called a greater vampire. Buddy, take the ropes before that thing comes back to finish what it started. Another less serious voice talked to him. Finally, after letting out a heavy sigh, Logan grabbed the rope hanging in front of him. He grabbed it as the ropes lifted him towards the airship. The bottom of the airship slowly opened, letting Logan into the airship. Logan, when he entered the airship before he could even look around, he heard a familiar voice. The old man Gary came running to him. Gary, Logan was relieved to see the old man. What happened, Logan? The old man asked, even though he looked like he guessed what happened. Where is Tess? She is here, Logan sighed. Where are we? Several seconds later, Logan asked the old man, looking around him. He was standing in an empty room with no windows. There was a door a couple of meters in front of him where the old man came through. He walked towards the door. As they reached the door, the old man opened it to reveal a grandiloquent, spacious hall. If Logan didn't know he was in an airship, he would have thought this was a home of a wealthy noble. New_chap_ers are pub_lished on lworld.com. However, Logan was not in the mood to immerse himself in the richness around him. Rather, he focused his gaze on the man and woman sitting on the sofa. They were none other than Tiberius and Maxine. You must be Logan. Please take a seat. Logan noticed the dark-haired woman gesturing at him to sit in front of her. He had so many questions in his mind, but looking at the dark robes she was wearing reminded him of a familiar person. Logan wanted answers and he saw no other choice than talking to them. The old man and Logan approached the two of them cautiously. The old man seemed relaxed around them because he knew who they were, unlike Logan. He heard about Tiberius but hadn't seen him in person. "We are terribly sorry about what happened to your village," Maxine consoled Logan as they were taking their seats before them. "I am Maxine and this is Tiberius." The moment he heard the name Tiberius, Logan was taken aback by surprise. He was the king of the newly found city called Freedom City. Until the crowning ceremony, they were calling it a city instead of a kingdom. "We can't revive all those you lost, but we can find and kill that thing that did it," said Tiberius. As a warrior, Tiberius connected with Logan and understood what he was going through. It was a real pity that he couldn't save the villagers sooner. "Where is Tess?" Before anything, Logan wanted to make sure his wife was fine. Clap. Maxine simply clapped as a maid entered the hall pushing a wheelchair with Tessa on it. Logan immediately ran to his wife. "Tess, baby," he knelt before her, gently cupping her face. He couldn't hold back the tears gushing out of his eyes. "Don't cry." Logan's muscles went rigid when he heard his wife's sweet melodious voice after 6 months. A shaky smile built up on his face as the surprise sunk in. "Tess." Courtesy of Lord Lucifer, Logan heard Maxine. He quickly turned back, feeling a hope of healing his wife in his heart. "Lord Lucifer said you know him as David." Logan wanted to say he was surprised but he kinda expected it after seeing the black robe she was wearing. "David," he mumbled under his breath. "We call him Lord Lucifer. The most up-to-date NOV_ are published _here L-World." "See know him," Maxine said with a smile, but for Logan, it sounded like an order. "D Lord Lucifer, can he cure my wife?" That was the first thing that came to Logan's mind. According to the healers, there was no cure for his wife. To be honest, Logan always wondered whether he should try to contact David or not by some means ever since his wife fell sick. In his mind, David was evil. He mercilessly killed Ross and his team even though he could have let them live. Compared to the greater vampire, David was a saint. "Why don't you ask him yourself?" Maxine flicked her wrist as a giant mirror appeared before them. Soon David appeared in the mirror. Since he must not let anyone see his real face, which was Ghost, he changed his face to David face using the mask. He had never let anyone in the southern continent see his real face, including Maxine. Except for Azazel, no one knew Ghost and Lucifer were the same person. "Do you think I am evil now, Logan?" Michael asked, void of any expression on his face. "That's a greater vampire you saw, Logan. What happened to your village was a pity. But soon, that would happen to every village in the southern continent." To this moment, Michael was in a kind of surprised state because of the vampires. "I'd recommend you to send the survivors to Freedom City. However, that decision is up to you now. I wish all the best in your journey, Logan." Everyone in the room was surprised. Logan expected David to ask him to serve him or something. "Lord Lucifer," Logan immediately went to his knees. "Please accept my loyalty." Michael smiled as he shook his head. "You've not the man I met, Logan. You've gone soft. I don't blame you. You have a wife and you love your peaceful life. The fire I want in my subordinates is no longer within you." Logan tried to interject but was stopped by the wave of Michael's hand. "Even now, you want to serve me because you expect me to heal your wife," Michael said and turned his gaze to Maxine. "Give her the special healing potion." "Yes, my lord." Maxine nodded before flicking her wrist. A glistening navy blue potion materialized in her hand. It was not the 90% pure healing potion Michael gave to all his trusted subordinates. "Mix 2 drops in water and give it to her. In 6 months she will be completely cured. Take this as my gift to you, Logan." After seeing the decisions Logan made and the way he loved his wife, Michael decided not to take Logan as his subordinate. Michael expected his subordinates to perform some ruthless tasks for him. Logan, however, no longer had that ruthlessness in him. Michael was able to see that. Full_out current_novel on L-World. COM he was too attached to his wife. In the future, if Guardians or the Sky Hall used Tessa as a hostage, Logan would spill the beans in a second. Logan wasn't worth the trouble of making him and his wife Tessa a cultivator. At least Logan served him one last time, luring the vampire and proving to Michael the existence of vampires. Because of the soft part in his heart, he decided to heal Tessa and send Logan off with the final gift. It was a pity that Logan has gone soft. In case he hadn't found Tiberius, Michael might have made Logan his subordinate. Since it wasn't the case, Logan had no place in his army as Tiberius was better than Logan in every aspect. Importantly, Tiberius was ruthless and had no love interest. Chapter 474 The Deathless Clan. Somewhere in the southern continent, a spooky castle was located hidden from civilization. 7 skinny, square towers surrounded the castle in almost a perfect circle around this incredible castle and were connected by fortified, thick walls made of dark gray stone. Wide windows were scattered generously around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with symmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. A giant gate with tall stone doors, a regular bridge and strong defenses guarded the entrance to the castle ground. It was the only easy way in, any other side would be futile. Giant bones of various beasts littered the fields outside the castle, half overgrown, but still a painful reminder of the past. Unknown to the world, this castle had stood the test of time. It stood it well, but cracks began to show here and there. The castle was located on the edge of the southern continent. This land was uncharted, to speak frankly. No one survived trying to chart this part of the land by one group, the Deathless. The next day after the events of the Rackdale Village massacre, inside a dark, gloomy hall, several figures dressed in Gothic style sat around a round table. Each of them looked like they were going trick-or-treat for Halloween. The three men at the table wore long black suits with antique buttons and red vests, while the two ladies were in fancy black skirts, red tops with bell sleeves and a black hat. Underneath their dress and makeup, they all had chalk-white skin, blood-red lips and two long fangs. "We should have killed him," Hacken said. Hacken was a conniving vampire who looked like a man in his mid-30s, but he recently turned 600 years old. He had dark brown eyes, a fair complexion due to the makeup he wore, and dark brown hair neatly braided. He was the shortest and plumpy among the vampires sitting at the table. "Relax, Hacken, let's hear what he has to say first. Then we can pass judgment," a youthful voice responded to Hacken. This young outgoing vampire was named Saber. Despite his youthful look, his real age was 485 years ago. He had blue eyes, a medium brown complexion and light brown hair in an updo. He was neither too handsome nor too unattractive. He had a face and body that let him perfectly blend in with the crowd unnoticed. The oldest of them listened to the two, uttering no words. He recently turned 1,050 years but looked like he was still in his mid-30s. He had silvery blue eyes, a pale complexion and red hair in a long braid. He was tall and fairly muscular beneath his dark suit and red vest. The other vampires knew him by the name Ingram. Among the two female vampires who wore identical clothes, one looked a bit plump while the other had a perfect hourglass structure. The plump one had red hair while the other had striking black hair. The red-haired vampire went by the name Lenora and the brunette was called Trista. In the hierarchy of vampires, these five belonged to the category of elder vampires. Of course, there were other elder vampires, but these five were the ones present in the room. Each of these elder vampires served an alpha, and these alphas served the most powerful vampire of them all, the Maker. The Maker was said to be the first vampire. According to the ancient texts possessed by the Deathless clan, the Maker disappeared 6,000 years ago. They believed that the Maker had entered into an eternal slumber, and it was their task to locate him and wake him from his slumber. The Deathless clan was working in the shadows for thousands of years with a single purpose: find the Maker. Visit L-World. C-OM for a better user experience. He has waited long enough. Let's call him Lenora, the red-haired vampire said in a carefree, playful tone. Yeah, let's get this over with. Trista waved her hand. Moments later the two elder vampires spoke. The round table opened in the middle as a tall figure emerged from the ground. A red spotlight on the figure revealed his face, and if Logan was there, he would recognize the man. He was the greater vampire who massacred his village single-handedly. Elders, the greater vampire bowed at each elder vampire. Do you admit the consequences of your bloodlust, Vlad? Saber asked. You have endangered our secrecy, Vlad. You didn't only let the bodies behind but also left witnesses alive, Lenora said seriously. The others remained in silence, letting Vlad speak for himself. I am willing to pay any price for my mistakes, elders. I only wish to share the knowledge I acquired during my last venture. Vlad paused for a moment to look at everyone before continuing. There is another one in southern continent who can use arch-energy, and I don't think he's one of us. You jest, Hacken growled at Vlad. He couldn't remain silent after hearing Vlad's outlandish claims. He was about to slam the stone table when Saber raised his hand. Where did you learn this information? All the vampires possessed the ability to detect lies, and they saw no signs of Vlad. Nonetheless, only Saber seemed to trust Vlad for some reason. From a human in Rackdale village on the outskirts of Giselle. He told me that the man offered to join him. The human lied that he joined. The magic user has left the human alive, and when I was about to kill him, I was ambushed by an airship fitted with a light beam spotlight. I believe the magic user sent the airship to aid the human. So it's true. Saber's words shocked everyone more than Vlad did. Saber, what the hell are you talking about? He was deceived. No one other than us can use arch energy inside the void line. Han couldn't believe what Vlad just said. You can't deny the possibility that he might be a rogue vampire exiled by us, Lenora said as Saber shook his head. I've been hearing things from my men. Recently, the pirates started to talk about a captain who casts spells and uses magic. We can all agree that pirates are not a very reliable source of information. Try the L World. Seat OM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. No shit, Hacken sneered. 2 bottles of rum and they sing songs about Kraken. Forget about us. If there is someone who could use arch energy inside Void Line, all the great clans would have hunted him down. Saber smiled hearing Hacken. You answered your own question, Hacken. No one believes the pirates. Pirates lie, but he didn't. Saber pointed at Vlad. I also happen to have on good authority the Guardians suspect the one Vlad told us about and the one who calls himself Lucifer might be the same person. Saber's lips curved upwards, revealing a slight grin that seemed like the devil of a grin. He may have looked normal, calm and harmless among the 6, but in truth, he was the cruelest and most dangerous of them all. Hee, Lenora giggled. Does this authority happen to be a certain Guardian? Why do I have a feeling you tasted my food? Saber asked with a smile at Lenora. Because I did. Lenora licked her lips. I have to say, Saber. When you turned a cultivator into us, I had my doubts. But after tasting her, it's worth all the trouble. I'm thinking about getting cultivator minion myself. Seeing the conversation straying away from the right track, Trista clapped her hands. What should we do with him? Trista asked, pointing at Vlad. What else? The smile on Saber's face faded away. Kill him, Saber said, snapping his finger as Vlad exploded into a bloody mist. What the fuck, Saber? Hacken growled. You ruined my clothes. How about I treat you to a special meal? Leaving the bloody mess of Vlad behind, Saber took Hacken to his special lair underground where he kept a special blood meal. For more _novel, visit L World. Sinoam. Meanwhile, in the Aquilan realm, Michael was standing in the middle of the Black Forest with Gaia and Eladir. They had a boar in a steel cage in front of them on the ground. Can you at least give us a clue? Gaia leaned on Michael, trying to seduce him to spill the beans. With a proud smile on his face, Michael took out a muddy brown potion in his hand. The potion was glistening brightly inside the vial. The boar was in a paralyzed state, so it didn't even budge when Michael bent down to pour the potion into its mouth. Little by little, the poutine went into its mouth. Gaia stared at the boar, expecting something, although she had no idea what to expect. Even Eladir was curious about the potion because Lucifer was working on the potion for almost 6 months non-stop. After finishing pouring the potion into its mouth, Michael kicked the steel several meters away from him. When the steel cage hit the ground, the steel cage opened. At that same time, the paralyzing poison Michael injected into the boar wore off. Thus the boar leaped out of the cage. As though it remembers who caged it, the boar locked its gaze with Gaia. The boar then went to dig the ground a bit with its legs as a sign of aggression. Gaia even saw puffs of smoke rushing out of its nostrils. So your motherfucking potion makes the boar angrier? Gaia rolled her eyes. She then took out the heavy sword hanging on her back. But Michael, wait for it. Michael lowered her hands. The boar began to run towards them. It was royally pissed because of what Gaia did. The boar was having the time of his life with a female boar when she plucked him up and put him into a cage. Wait for it. The boar was getting closer and closer, yet Michael did not allow her to attack it. Just when the boar was a couple of meters away from them, Michael snapped his finger. As soon as he did that, the boar exploded from within into a bloody mist. What the? Gaia was stunned. She saw no spell casting or use of arch energy from him. Yet the boar exploded. Michael took out another muddy brown potion from his system storage. Imagine mixing this in the food of our enemies. I can kill them anytime, any moment, with just a snap of my fingers. Michael felt the urge to let out a burst of evil laughter, but he controlled himself. This potion was one of the greatest achievements of his life. He created an entirely new potion that even the system had no knowledge of. No matter how many 6-star alchemists tried to replicate this potion, they wouldn't succeed because the potion contained something this world didn't have. Nanites. Updated _ at World. COM, only one thing left, naming this potion. Why don't you guys suggest me a cool name for this potion? Chapter 475. Leaving Mazeroth. Another 3 weeks flew by in a flash in Aquilan Realm. Everyone in Mazeroth was as busy as bees due to the upcoming talent exhibitions. Every single student was under so much pressure except Michael. He was chilling by the lake with Nightmare. He even bought a black aviator from the system store and wore it while sunbathing. On top of it, he also bought one for Nightmare. The little dragon looked so cute wearing sunglasses. 66, a youngster in green robes, approached Michael. Beat it 50, I'm not gonna do anything today. Michael chased away the youngster who was about to ask some doubt related to alchemy. They continued to bask in the warmth of the morning sun and enjoyed the lake view. Since they had no classes to attend, Michael and Nightmare decided not to do anything academics related. While relishing their free time, Michael took a sip of freshly brewed coffee through the straw. He was receiving badass points just by chilling. So have you decided what to show in the talent exhibition? Nightmare asked, looking at the crystal clear sky. Yeah, what is it? You're gonna blow everyone out of the water, aren't you? No, Michael's answer surprised Nightmare. The dragon turned his head to look at the relaxed face of Michael. You always show off, frowned Nightmare. Not this time. I'm gonna put together a potion that would make people float. Cool. Nightmare lowered the sunglasses for a moment before raising them up. Nightmare realized the reason for his lack of commitment to creating a new potion for the talent exhibition. 99% of the students were working their asses off to impress Sky Hall representatives and getting assigned to any of the Sky Hall organizations. That leftover 1% was students who had no desire to join Sky Hall, such as Michael, Victoria, and Edith. Speaking of Victoria, she was looking at Michael and Nightmare from a distance. What's he doing? And where did he find those black glasses? Edith asked. She couldn't help giggling at Nightmare. He was too cute. What does it look like he's taking a rest? Victoria said, showing no emotion. Her emotionless face quickly showed some expression as she creased her brows. She noticed Diego, who got his ass kicked by Ghost, approaching him with a couple of his lackeys. You, Diego growled as Michael lowered his glasses. I want a rematch, Diego growled again. Fuck off. Michael did not even consider Diego's request for a rematch. For more _novel, visit L World. Calm. Unexpectedly, Diego didn't lose his calm. He remained, uttering no cuss words. This time rematch, no restrictions. Are you man enough to accept my challenge? Diego pointed his finger at Michael and challenged him. Now you're being cliché. Go away, it's my rest day. Michael was too lazy to even look at Diego. He will accept it. All of a sudden, Michael heard the cold waspish voice sound in his ears. Professor Lane. Diego and his lackeys quickly straightened their bodies. As Professor Lane landed on the grass field beside Nightmare, Michael and the little dragon removed their glasses and stood up. Since you have so much free time, I will allow this duel to happen. Professor Lane gave both Michael and Nightmare a death stare. However, that gaze was way better than what he gave to Diego and his lackeys. Monkeys have bigger brains and fashion sense than you buffoons. Before Diego or his lackeys could respond to Lane's comment, he flicked his wrist as a bright light enveloped all of them. The next moment, Michael noticed he was standing in the middle of the arena. The students need a distraction, Professor Lane exclaimed. Michael was really pissed off by Lane. He was a soul refining stage level 2 cultivator, whereas Diego was only at the core strengthening stage level 1. He wasn't against kicking Diego's ass, but he was worried about revealing his own cultivation stage to others. It was obvious Professor Lane was upset with Michael because he didn't create a mind-blowing new potion or a pill. A potion that would enable someone to fly was borderline pointless. Still, Michael went with that because he was not stupid enough to give a super powerful potion to Sky Hall which could be later used against him. Diego had no idea about the power gap between them. He was still thinking that Michael was in the core formation stage. In his mind, if he could use arch energy, he could defeat him and wash away the shame. What surprised Michael, though, Lane too didn't have a clue about his cultivation stage. If he had, he wouldn't have permitted this duel. Professor Lane stood between Diego and Michael until the area got filled with students. A rematch between them was too tempting for the students to ignore. Victoria and Edith came to the arena with the rest of the Warrior House students. It was a sudden battle, but surprisingly the students of each house managed to draw signboards showing their support for each participant. Unlike the first duel they had, this time, Michael had way too many supporters from the alchemist's house. 66, 66, 66, 66. The most up-to-date NOV are published under L World. See OM. They were cheering for Michael loudly as the scene reminded Michael of the tournament. Let's get this over with, Michael sighed. Unknown to him, a special person came to witness the battle disguised as House Runemaster's students. It was none other than Rowena Winston, the Holy Maiden of Sky Hall. Just like Michael, she got bored and decided to chill. When she saw the commotion, she decided to come to the arena. You can go chill out, Michael patted Nightmare on the head. The dragon nodded, then he snickered at Diego. I hope you have a healing potion with yourself. Diego might seem calm outside, but inside he was burning with rage. He wanted to rip the wings off that snarky dragon and teach it a lesson. For now he had to deal with his master. After everything was said and done, Professor Lane simply flicked his hand as a giant chakra flicked in the ground. It will keep you alive, Professor Lane didn't linger around. He took off into the air, leaving Michael and Diego behind. Michael felt nothing, but Diego could feel his arch energy returning to his body. I was waiting for this moment for so long. Diego cracked his knuckles. Michael, on the other hand, just like before, said nothing. He just lowered his sunglass. Begin, Ignitia. Not even a millisecond passed by after Lane uttered the word begin when a golden bolt of lightning shot out of Michael's finger and penetrated through Diego's throat. Jirarchchich. Diego clenched his throat as blood gushed out of the wound. He dropped to his knees, losing all the strength in his body. The chakra beneath him began to glow in green, and soon, a light layered Diego's body. The students were utterly shocked. Many didn't even see what just happened. The duel was finished as soon as it began. All the cheers resounding in the arena stopped abruptly. Michael raised his sunglasses and looked badass doing it. Professor, can I leave now? Michael looked up, asking Professor Lane. For the first time since Michael met him, this was the first time he saw Lane shocked. Professor Lane was unable to answer Michael for a few moments. Not only him, but Rowena was also surprised. So he is the ghost, Rowena said to herself. Ever since Rowena heard Ghost saved her mother, cousin, and Sabrina, she wanted to meet Ghost in person. But due to some reasons she was unable to do so until now. As the Holy Maiden, she had access to all student records. Thanks to those records, she identified Michael successfully. This _ content is taken from L-World. Sidom, not yet. Professor Lane regained his cold demeanor. He completely ignored Diego as he landed in front of Michael. Here, Michael saw Professor Lane taking out a silver parchment from his space ring with a flick of his wrist. You're excused from the talent exhibition. You can leave whenever you want and return after the holidays. Everyone, including Michael, was surprised by the sudden gift from Professor Lane. The holidays were supposed to start 3 weeks after the talent exhibition. Michael removed the sunglasses. Well, thank you, Professor. It's better you don't show yourself in the talent exhibition than underselling yourself there. Michael didn't expect this from Professor Lane. To be honest, Michael was completely caught off guard by him. If he had known beating Diego again would get him an early ticket out of Aquilan, he would have done it sooner. Before Michael could finish his sentence, Professor Lane vanished into thin air. The badass points notifications were going crazy in his mind. In a few minutes he earned almost 80,000 badass points. He thought the reign of badass points was about to end when he turned back. He was dead wrong. Someone landed beside Diego with a loud thud, shaking the ground beneath. Halt! The clear, crisp voice made Michael halt his steps. Without even turning back, Michael knew who was standing behind him by the reactions of the students around him. Just as he guessed, he turned around to see the head prefect Elliot Watson, clad in full silver armor, looking at Michael. The array placed in the arena almost healed Diego back to full health. Not another duel. Michael was annoyed inside. Although fighting them would get him a ton of badass points, he felt bored fighting arrogant young masters. He had better things to do than wasting time on them. He was not Noah to fight every arrogant young master in his way. Thank you, were the words that came out of Elliot's mouth and completely shocked everyone in the arena. Michael wasn't an exception. Michael was confused why the heck Elliot thanked him. He was kinda expecting Elliot to challenge him for a duel so he could avenge his friend. You've given him a valuable lesson, Elliot nodded. It was a nod that kinda looked like a bow. Okay, Michael nodded back, hiding the confusion in his heart from showing up on his face. After Elliot thanked Michael, he took Diego and flew into the sky. Michael didn't linger around either. Now that Professor Lane had permitted him to leave the Aquilan realm early, he needed to pack his things, inform Gaia, and leave Mazeroth. The first thing he planned to do after leaving Mazeroth is to find the vampire and get every piece of information he could on the bloodsuckers. The source of this _ chapter, L-World, Sidoam. Chapter 476 Reunion with Vidora. Michael was packing up everything when Gaia entered the room, pouting. You're packing up, I see. She came to his workbench where several apparatuses were fuming up colorful smokes. I know what you're thinking, and no. You can't come with me until you get the holidays. Gaia sighed instead of arguing with him. She expected this answer, and in fact she would be more helpful to him in the Aquilan realm than in the outside world. So you're going to Giselle or the sect? Asked Gaia while dismantling his apparatus setup. Giselle. I want to find more about the vampires, and I have a feeling the vampires have something to do with Peyton and Sabrina's disappearance. Gaia continued to help him pack all the things. The silver scroll offered to him by Professor Lane enabled him to use arch-energy, not that he needed a scroll to use arch-energy. Now no one would suspect him. The room looked clean and rather empty after he put everything into the system storage. He was too busy cleaning everything up to notice the sad look on Gaia's face. Finally, when he turned around, he saw her standing in the center of the room sad-faced. He put everything on hold and approached her. "Just 10 more months, Snakey," he said, gently cupping her hand. "I know," her voice stuttered due to her trying to hide her sadness. How could she hide anything from Michael when he knows her completely? So he just smiled before kissing her right between her eyes. "We are gonna spend eternity together. So don't worry," she couldn't hold back her feelings as he locked her lips with his. Good thing Michael scanned the room and made it spy-proof. Although it said that Mazeroth doesn't spy on students, he didn't believe them. Soon they stopped kissing to embrace each other. "I'm gonna miss you," she said, hugging him as tight as she could. "Me too. Where is that flying lizard?" Here Gaia shuddered. She quickly let go of Michael, turned around, and saw Nightmare flying before her. "Fuck. Don't sneak up on me, ugly brat," she tried to grab Nightmare, but he evaded her easily. "I didn't sneak up on you, you were just too busy being lovey-dovey. Visit L World. Com for a better reading experience. You're gonna pay for that." With her threat began their cat and mouse chase around the room. Considering Michael created his new potion, which he still has to name, in this room, he was extremely thorough in cleaning the room. He didn't leave a single speck of evidence that could be traced back to the new potion. "Got you." After chasing Nightmare for 5 minutes, she finally caught him. She headlocked Nightmare, knocking him on the head repeatedly. "I am so happy we are leaving you behind." "Ah, Nightmare," Michael called Nightmare as they both looked at him. An evil grin quickly emerged on Gaia's face. "Sorry to burst your bubble, but you're not coming." Nightmare was shocked. "What the fuck?" he growled, still being locked under her arms. "I can't take you with me." The scroll was pretty clear about it. Michael took out the silver scroll from his storage and threw it at Gaia. Both the snake and the dragon curiously read the contents written on the silvern parchment. "Familiars are not allowed to leave Aculun realm." Gaia read the line out aloud before closing the scroll. "Now that I think about it, Gilrine was talking about some pocket dimension." "What pocket dimension?" Nightmare growled. He was not at all happy about staying in Mazeroth without Michael. He would have been less pissed about this if he was able to stay with Gaia. Unfortunately, no one was allowed inside staff quarters. Thus, Nightmare had to stay in the room alone or with Eladir, who spent most of his time cultivating, meditating, and reading books in the library. "I think they are planning to bring all the familiars into a pocket dimension for training or something. It will be a good experience for you, Nightmare." Michael rubbed Nightmare's head playfully after coming to him. "I think Eladir is in the library." Seeing Eladir hadn't returned to the room, Michael realized he might still be in the library. "Here, take these." Gaia saw 2 black rings appear on his palm. "Space ring?" Gaia tilted her head. "Modified interlinked space rings. We can use this across realms," said Michael. These 2 rings cost him 10,000 badass points each in the system store. He wouldn't have bought them if they weren't vital to his plans. Using these rings, even after leaving the Aculun realm, Michael could provide Gaia and Eladir with necessary items from his side and vice versa. Visit L World. So for a better reading experience. The downside of these rings was he wouldn't be able to store anything weighing more than 50 kilograms in space rings. Because of this restriction, it was borderline impossible to work on devices that required Eladir's runes, for instance, the mortar. Fortunately, by the start of next month, everyone would get holidays and be allowed to leave the Aculun realm. That time, the 2 of them could finally finish building the mortar and hopefully more powerful devices for Bertha. "Give the other to Eladir when you see him." After everything was said and done, Michael was ready to leave the Aculun realm for Giselle. "Aren't you going to meet Lane?" Gaia asked. "You've seen him. He's not very good at connecting with people. Besides, he's pissed at me for not making a breakthrough in alchemy by creating an entirely new potion or a pill. Less he knows you already created one." Nightmare joined the conversation. "And it will stay that way." Michael's voice became serious. "I haven't perfected this potion. But even in this imperfect state, this potion is a game changer." They both nodded in agreement. "I will see you 2 later." Since there were no obligations left in the Aculun realm, Michael activated the silver scroll by sending the scroll a silver of arch energy. The next moment, a bright light enveloped him and disappeared in a few seconds along with Michael. "Okay, Lizard, I have classes. They'll see you later. Stay out of trouble." Gay rubbed Nightmare on the head with a smile. "You too. You're the one who should be careful." She gave a nod before leaving the room through the window. Little did Nightmare know at this time that in the pocket dimension he would meet 2 other dragons who were going to change his life. Life without Gaia and Ghost was so boring to Vidora, especially to Iag and Sarba. It had been approximately 3 months since Ghost and Gaia left for Mazeroth. The only entertainment they had after coming out of cultivation was the surveillance mirror. The three of them watched all the footage live and recorded it to find out more about the vampires. There were barely any drones or spycams on the southern continent, excluding the homes of senators and Stormville Mountain. Otherwise, they would have tracked the vampire who apparently massacred a village on the outskirts of Giselle. If Azazel let Dalar take us to the crime scene, I can try to track the vampire, Sarba meekly said, and I can test my new scorching breath on that bloodsucker, Ayag said without bothering to hide her arrogance. Nothing much changed in their behavior or physical bodies in these 3 months except their powers. Ayag now could breathe fire in addition to her ability to shoot sonic waves, and Sarba developed powerful senses. His senses let Sarba locate a living being using the heartbeat from a mile away. That was one of the senses he had. Taste, smell, vision, hearing, every sense known to man was heightened for Sarba. I don't believe our core formation level 5 will be enough to go head-to-head with the vampire. We know nothing about their kind, Kane calmly said, only to get a headbutt from Ayag, full undersir current Avalon L-World. COM, don't worry Black, I'm sure you will get a power of your own soon. It's obvious you're a late bloomer. Kane ignored Ayag's mockery and concentrated on the footage before him. Master Kane, Master Sarba, Miss Ayag, it's bedtime. The three of them saw Azazel's ethereal form materialize before them. We don't need sleep, demon, move away, you're blocking our view. Ayag growled at Azazel, but he handled her with a gentle smile on his face. Your bodies need rest, Miss Ayag. Besides, you can miss something so obvious when your mind is exhausted. He is right, Sarba was the good boy among the three. So he agreed with Azazel, which earned him a headbutt from the rebel child Ayag. Let's go, Sarba. Kane moved his head towards the door to leave the room. Since 2 out of 3 agreed upon sleeping, Ayag had no choice but to go with them despite how she felt. However, just as they were about to flap their tiny wings, Azazel's eyes opened wide. Soon an elated smile emerged on his face. The 3 of them were completely taken aback by his surprise. He is here, Sarba joyfully said as he sensed a powerful figure walking toward them, and he had no doubt that this powerful radiation belonged to none other than Ghost. Just as he said, the door opened to reveal Michael in his usual black attire. Ghost? Even the normally silent Kane grinned and leaped at Ghost excitedly. They were so surprised and happy to see him again. They wrapped their heads around his neck, showering him with kisses as though they were puppies. My lord, Azazel quickly went to his knees as his eyes were brimming with the joy of seeing his lord return. Nightmare and Gaia, where are they? Ayag and Sarba asked in unison. My lord, congratulations on reaching the soul-refining stage. When talking to Michael through the spiders and mirror before, Azazel couldn't see the level of Michael's cultivation stage. Right at the moment, the demon butler could feel the immense power he was radiating and sense his cultivation stage. And I have to congratulate you for reaching core strengthening level 8. For some reason Michael wasn't surprised by the demon reaching core strengthening stage level 8 from level 5 in a few months, virtually doing nothing. The demon butler was bound to Michael, so the stronger Michael was, the stronger the demon butler would be. I'm unworthy of such words, my lord. Azazel bowed as Michael turned his gaze towards the 3 heads staring at him for an answer about Gaia and Nightmare. They will soon. The moment he placed them on the table, they began to nag him about what happened in Mazeroth. It took him almost an hour to finish narrating everything that happened in Mazeroth and answer their questions. Azazel, tell Maxine and Tiberius to meet me in Caius' home. Yes, my lord, full understood. On the L-World. Zidon platform. Azazel nodded. Now let's go meet Arya and her brothers. Chapter 477, The Dark Suit 2. Michael stopped by his room to change his clothes before meeting Arya and her brothers. Entering his room, he snapped his fingers as the light orbs fixed on the walls dimly lit the room in crimson red. Vidora jumped to the neatly made bed from his shoulder. The armor stand was located in the corner of his room beside the alchemy table void of any armor. Before equipping the armor through the system, he willed the system to put the armor on the armor stand. The next moment, the Lucifer armor was put on the armor by the system for display. Vidora noticed several changes in the armor, such as the armor being darker than before, the armor linings were painted in crimson red, the material of the armor seemed sturdy and the long blades sticking out of the wrists. These were all visible changes. In addition to them, Michael equipped the armor with the upgraded APD and Mark III grappling hook, while Eladir placed invisible runes that increased the armor's resilience to withstand an immense amount of both physical and magical attacks. Thanks to the runes, now his armor was resistant to fire except primordial flames. The upgraded version of APD enabled him to not only inject himself with potions and pills but also inject others using a retractable needle and spray potions through a sprayer attached to the center of his gloves. You made some changes, Ayag commented at the armor. I call this Dark Suit 2. Michael planned to forge a new more powerful armor in the future, but for now, he had to make do with this armor. He made all the changes he did to his suit to Gaia's suit 2. Except for the chest area in her armor designed to fit her bosom, both armors looked identical. For a few moments he just stared at the armor, feeling the armor. Instead of willing the system to equip the armor in an instant, he manually wore the armor piece by piece. Sling, sling. After fitting the gauntlets around his wrist, Michael clenched his fist as the hidden blades came out, producing a sharp sling sound. He then raised his hand. A green mist sprayed out of his wrists. What the heck is that? Iag frowned. Fear toxin, Michael said, checking the APD by injecting himself with a healing potion. Several tests later, Michael put on the mask and finished putting on the armor. The latest _sodies are on the L World. Xenoam website. He walked towards the mirror to check himself out. To be honest, he looked frightening in the armor. So he decided to shroud himself with the cloud of darkness and light his eyes with eyes of darkness. Unlike before, his eyes were now flaming in dark flames. Since he was standing in his room, near the bed, he avoided conjuring the dark flames around him. Nonetheless, the little bit of dark flames coming out of his eyes was enough for Vidora to sense its overwhelming power. Sarba, who now possessed the god-level senses, noticed the violent surge of energy within him. Just looking at the dark energy within him gave him a headache. He quickly retracted his senses. So that's the dark flames? One of the primordial flames, Sarba asked as Michael nodded. Cool, isn't it? Or should I say hot? Michael chuckled before putting off the dark flames. Soon, the shroud around him and the fire in his eyes vanished. Let's go, Michael put on the hood. It was time for him to meet Arya and her two brothers, Titus and Optimus. Vidora jumped back on his shoulder with a swift leap. He made his way to the throne room where he planned to meet the trio. In the dark forest, two men with jacked-up bodies were treating a giant tree as their personal punching bag, while a girl with short hair sat on the branch above them and plucked the dark leaves one by one. Are you becoming slow, Titus? Still faster than you. The two men breathed heavily as they were training in the dark forest for almost 10 hours. They were identical twins, and except for their hair color, nothing different about them. Even Arya would have a hard time if it wasn't for Titus having blonde hair and Optimus having brown hair. They had scars that many used to differentiate between the brothers. However, the healing potions and the rebuilding process healed all their scars. As a result, their skin was now smooth and scarless as a baby's bottom. Life in the dark forest was difficult for the brothers. Mainly it was boring, and they were prohibited to go on a murderous spree on those who enslaved them and killed their family. They still couldn't believe someone resurrected them and healed their bodies completely. The more they heard about this Lucifer from Arya, the more they were astonished by him. The tales Arya told them were simply mind-blowing. Updated _ @L World. COM deep down in their hearts, they were glad Arya found a godlike figure to protect her. She had grown so much, they could tell that. She was not a meek, scared little girl anymore as she defeated both of them in a fair fight. Titus and Optimus couldn't wait to see Arya's lord and Tiberius, who trained alongside them in the Ludus under Doctorus. My lords, my lady. Titus and Optimus stopped their training when they heard Azazel's voice. The first time they saw Azazel, they freaked out. Now they got used to the sudden appearances of Azazel. Lord Lucifer is here and he wants to meet the three of you in the throne hall. Arya immediately jumped down from the branch and landed on the ground nimbly. Titus and Optimus looked at each other. They seemed a bit tense. Still, they followed Arya and Azazel behind to the underground mansion. The hallways were as usual dimly lit with crimson-red orbs fixed onto the walls. The eerie silence would freak anyone out, and the two gladiators weren't an exception. As the narrow hallway opened up to the hall, they saw a figure gracefully sitting on the throne clad in dark armor. With one leg over another and head resting on his fist, he looked relaxed yet dominant. They noticed the three-headed creature atop the throne handle looking down on them. My lord. Arya immediately dropped to one knee and bowed. She gave a stare to both of her brothers, wordlessly ordering them to do the same. Titus and Optimus, how are you two feeling? Titus and Optimus heard Lucifer talk in a demonic voice that perfectly suited him. Feeling well, thanks to you, my lord. Titus bowed his head. Considering Titus and Optimus were soldiers, they showed no lack of respect to their lords. Good. Michael used the X-ray eyes to see their cultivation level. It was no surprise to Michael that they were still at Arch Sensing Stage Level 1. They barely had any Arch energy circulating in their veins. Fortunately, they looked extremely fit and healthy. Are you two willing to be my subordinates and put an end to the slavery once and for all? Michael asked them directly without beating around the bush. Since Arya had already talked them down to accepting Lucifer as their lord, the two brothers didn't ask any questions. "Yes, my lord, for more novel visit L World." The two brothers said, bowing in unison. "Does the host wish to accept Titus Atronius as a subordinate? Does the host wish to accept Optimus Atronius as a subordinate?" As soon as the brothers agreed to serve him as his subordinates, the system's notification sounded in his mind. Yes, at the current level of the system he was allowed to have 11 subordinates. Currently he had 9 subordinates, and with Titus and Optimus, he had reached the maximum level of subordinates. Of course, he could have more subordinates, but the system rules for a subordinate wouldn't apply to them and he wouldn't be able to see their loyalty level. He planned to make Daniel his subordinate, except now he had no slots remaining for him. That wasn't a problem as Daniel and Ricky were absolutely loyal to him. Michael quickly took a look at their loyalty level to see the brothers harboring 56% loyalty towards him while Arya had 87%. Her loyalty level pleased him, contrary to her low cultivation level. She was still at the body strengthening stage despite taking all the potions and pills he was providing her. She couldn't blame her though because her body was still adapting to the conditions of cultivation continents. It would take years for her to absorb all the arch energy provided by the pills and potions, and she was considered a genius compared to the rest of the Southerners. So unless he finds a way to quicken the cultivation speed of all his Southern continent subordinates, it would take decades for them to even reach the core formation stage. Showing all these thoughts and future plans to the corner of his mind, he stood up. "Families can be your strength and weakness. Remember that." Michael stood from his throne after speaking those words. "Now that you three spend time together, it's time to get back to work." "Arya," Michael looked at Arya. "My lord, take your brothers to Bradford. Sadie will use her connection there to get them into the army." Michael started his long-term plan of army building by sending Titus and Optimus to Bradford where they would be trained by Ghost, in other words by himself. Visit lworld.com for a better user experience. "As you wish, my lord." Deep down Arya was glad to hear Lucifer's order. Compared to serving Lucifer directly, getting appointed as soldiers under the new King Ghost was much safer. According to the information Arya gathered, Bradford was managed by the Sunrise sect rather than the new king who goes by the name Ghost. Due to the agreements Ghost signed with King Bredia, Bradford was immune to invasions and wars. Thus, she knew her brothers would be much safer in Bradford. After Arya and her brothers left the hall, Michael activated the runic teleportation to teleport to Caius' home with Vidora. Sarba's help would be vital for the task he was about to undertake. Chapter 478 The Castle of Vampires. Maxine and Tiberius were waiting in Caius' room with Caius for the Dark Lord. Since everything was going according to plan without any hiccups, they were pretty relaxed. Compared to the other two, Tiberius was slightly tensed up as he didn't like whatever slaughtered Logan's village to be alive and well. Logan told all about how their battle went. Tiberius thought only Lucifer and the Dark Queen could use magic, but now there was another one. He couldn't wait to get some answers from Lucifer. Luckily he didn't have to wait any longer as Michael appeared in the room out of thin air. "My lord." Maxine immediately dropped to her knees, then Caius and finally Tiberius did the same. "Rise." Michael approached the chair before willing the system to replace the chair with his throne. "You must be Caius." The moment Michael placed Vidora on the oak table, Iag locked her gaze with Caius. Except for Maxine who met Vidora a couple of times, Tiberius and Caius were startled to hear the menacing voice of the white head among the three. Yes, my lady." Iag emphasized the word my lady. She was extremely overbearing and dominant that despite her stature, she exerted enough pressure on Caius to turn his face pale. "Tiberius, I presume. Nice to meet you." Sarba talked in an exactly opposite way of how Iag spoke to Caius. Tiberius was surprised by how polite and respectful the silver head was. Well, it took a couple of seconds for Tiberius to find the right words to greet the majestic creature looking at him. "Fuck it." Tiberius pushed away the thought of finding fancy words. "Nice to meet you too." Tiberius went with a simple greet as Sarba nodded. "Enough pleasantries." Michael raised his arm. "Before we move to the obvious, tell me, how's everything on your end?" Caius saw the dark eyes staring at him and it felt as though he was staring into his soul itself. "We have no problems on our side, my lord. In a week, Maven will be merged with Giselle with the support of the people of Maven. The latest understudies are on the L World. Sinoam website. The civil war he incited in Maven was going to finally pay off. He was glad to hear this update. General Quintus has recently started invading the lands of Prerid. The name General Quintus rang a bell in his head. He pondered for a moment before remembering everything about Quintus. He was the man who invaded Arya's homeland, Wuxia. He decimated the kingdom completely, removing Wuxia from the map and expanding the territory of Kingdom Myril. What's our stand in this war? I was thinking we should support Prerid, my lord. Caius stepped forward and pointed at the map on the table. His finger was on the kingdom Prerid adjacent to Maven. And the kingdom of Prerid was located between Maven and Myril. General Quintus has been expanding his territory for decades, and typically every 3 or 4 years, we have to change the map because of him. If we conquered Prerid, the possibility of him trying to invade Maven is high. Everyone in the room agreed with Caius. Cain, you think you can handle this? Michael asked Cain instead of guiding Caius on what to do next. He decided to treat this situation as a test for Cain. Yes, Cain said confidently. He already plotted a plan in his head. Then Michael turned his gaze towards Maxine. What about you, Maxine? How is the mining going on? The new machines and the pulley system will be installed next week, my lord. After that, the mining process would be 300% faster. Good. Michael nodded. Finally, he turned his gaze to Tiberius. However, instead of asking for an update, Michael gave Tiberius an update. We are going to capture that vampire, dead or alive, Tiberius has to say. He was indeed relieved to hear Lucifer. How's Logan doing? After what happened to Logan's village, Tiberius offered Logan to settle in Freedom City, which Logan wholeheartedly agreed. Not that Logan had any choice. The big man needed a safe place for the surviving villagers and his wife. He's adjusting, said Tiberius. New novel _chapters are published here, L-World. See Noam. Caius, prepare the airship. Yes, my lord. Caius bowed before leaving the room. My lord, what is that thing? It called itself a greater vampire? Tiberius doubtfully asked. That's what we are gonna find out. One thing for sure though, these creatures are extremely dangerous. Michael was fascinated by the vampires. However, he was also cautious since they could sue Arch Energy. His highest priority was to know more about the vampires, mainly what are their strengths and weaknesses. How strong are they? Their hierarchy, how many of them are there, and finally, what's their purpose? Michael needed answers to all these questions. I am sure Sarba here could help you locate that soon-to-be dead piece of shit, Iag menacingly said as Sarba bobbed his head up and down. Tiberius sensed the temperature suddenly dropping a bit. He then saw the intense murdering intent in the Whitehead's eyes. Somehow, it reminded him of the Dark Queen, which made him wonder where the Dark Queen was. Cain remained silent without participating in Iag's conversation. He was ironing out the tiny details in his plan until Michael said something related to the upcoming war between Prerid and Myril. The slavery will soon come to an end after this war, Michael said, looking at Tiberius. He truly felt grateful to Lucifer in this regard. Just like he promised, Lucifer helped him build a new kingdom for all those who've been enslaved by the rich. Whether Myril and Prerid would be merged with Giselle and become a single large kingdom or not, Tiberius knew the slavery is coming to an end soon. It's ready, my lord, Maxine said after being told by Caius through the earpiece. Her words brought Tiberius out of his imaginary world where slavery existed no more. Finally, Tiberius was relieved. Although it was only 5 minutes since Caius left, it felt like an eternity. The safety of his people was the most important thing to Tiberius. Now that the vampires threatened the very thing he was trying to protect, Tiberius was royally pissed off and wanted nothing more than to kill that bloodsucker. Tiberius and Maxine moved closer to his throne while Vidora jumped back on Michael's shoulder. The next moment, Michael activated the runic teleportation to teleport themselves to Caius' airship. Tiberius hated teleportation, but closing his eyes helped him deal with the aftereffects. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in the airship. Set a course to where Logan fought the vampire, Maxine ordered Caius as though she read Michael's thoughts. The daylight arrived as such intricately woven threads of gold so light that its creator could only be divine. On their way to the destination, Michael remained with his eyes closed. He was meditating and organizing his thoughts. Ever since he merged himself to become whole, he felt extremely powerful, which might unstable his mind as it did to Spectre. Therefore, he continued the meditation, which helped him control and connect with the dormant powers within him. After almost half an hour of flying, they finally reached their destination. From above, there was nothing but forest beneath them. Rather than flying down as Maxine and Tiberius expected, Michael took out several drones from his system storage. Open the door, Michael ordered Maxine as she walked to the door, followed by the drones. Whoosh. As soon as she opened the door, a loud howling sound coupled with a powerful suction force tried to suck everything out of the airship. Maxine quickly shut the door and the drones were already out in the air. The latest _SODIes are on _the L World. Xenoam website. Michael closed his eyes yet again, monitoring and controlling all the drones manually. The drones buzzed through the forest like busy bees trying to get honey out of flowers. Only in this scenario they were surveying the area for the vampires. Maxine and Tiberius noticed his eyes were abruptly opening after a few minutes. "Did you locate him?" asked Diag. "You two stay here." Michael's face was serious underneath his mask. They couldn't see the look on his face. Still, they didn't try to disagree with him, even Tiberius, who was unable to wait patiently for the vampire. As he was walking towards the door with Vidora on his shoulder, Maxine followed him behind. Whoosh! Michael opened the door and everything happened just like before. Without wasting a second, Michael jumped out of the airship. He soared through the air like a meteor. Breaking through the canopy and countless branches, Michael and Vidora landed on the ground. Michael noticed the broken trees and the clearing, which were clear signs of the battle between the vampire and Logan. Although the rain that day wiped away the prints and the blood, Michael had a way to bring back the traces he needed. "What's the plan?" asked Diag, looking around the forest. Sensing strange vibrations coming from that direction, Sarba looked at their right side as Michael expected. Still, Michael needed one more test before pursuing the vibrations Sarba been sensing. Michael waved his hand around him, spraying a translucent liquid in the air. When the tiny particles of the potion melded with the ground beneath, several glowing footprints began to appear in their sight. This potion was the better version of the potion he used at Jack's murder site. The potion would reveal the blood stains even after days or even months. Almost 99% of footprints were chaotic and human, except for the remaining 1%. It looked like a human footprint, however, only that pair of footprints were leading to the place where Michael noticed an anomaly. "If that's the footprints of the vampire, I have to say, it awfully similar to a human's system. Teleport Vidora back to the airship if things go south, although I doubt it will." Michael ordered the system. Yes. Since Vidora was familiar, he didn't have to pay extra, as he already paid up front before making Vidora his familiar. Michael followed the footprints while closely monitoring the environmental scanning map. In addition, the drones were also hovering around them to make sure no one ambushed them. There was nothing out of the order in the forest, they noticed while following the tracks. The forest was dark and gloomy. The trees danced to an unheard beat, whispering their songs to the wind. Here, sheltered by the mighty trees, was every kind of life, from the humble beetle to poisonous snake. Their journey came to an end when they noticed the glowing footprints were no longer to be found. That's where Michael's X-ray vision came into the picture. What seemed like countless trees and muddy ground intervened with veins and roots. What seemed to be the perfect picture of rainforest wasn't a forest at all. It was an illusion, and Michael could see through this illusion thanks to his X-ray vision. "Ignitia!" Michael pointed his finger at a tree branch directly above them. The moment the lightning bolt hit the branch, Vidora saw the scenery before them flickering. Soon, the forest they saw just a moment ago completely vanished from existence. Visit Elworld. Siom for the best no_vel_id_ng experience. A gloomy grayish area welcomed them, and in the distance, they saw an ancient castle under a blood-red sky. Chapter 479, The Castle of Vampires 2. System: the moment you sense a threat we can't handle, buy a teleportation scroll and teleport me away. Michael telepathically talked to the system. He was standing in what felt like a pocket dimension similar to the one in the dark forest. As far as his environmental scanning could reach, the scanning found no living beings. He knew that didn't mean he was alone in the dimension. Once again he raised his arms, spraying the potion into the air to reveal the bloody tracks. "This place looks freaky," Sarba commented, looking around the freaky castle grounds. There were countless skeletons that seemed like giant birds lay on the ground, half buried in the red sand. He followed the bloody foot tracks left behind by the vampire to the castle. He had reached the 30 steps leading to the castle, yet there were no guards, defenses, or anything for that matter. Michael climbed the stairs, showing no signs of fear. Ever since he merged his soul pieces back together, he barely felt any fear. That didn't mean he was void of fear, he just changed. Before, when his soul was split into 3, he would have been a little freaked out. When they climbed up the steps and saw 2 statues of soldiers flanking the giant oak door. "I sense 2 life signs." Sarba closed his eyes before saying. Meanwhile, Michael pushed open the door, revealing the empty, gloomy throne hall. As he entered the throne hall, he was welcomed by slim braziers hanging from each of the 12 limestone columns that lit up every part of the throne hall and coat everything in a red glimmer. The humongous chandeliers hanging from the arched ceiling dance in the flickering light, while statuettes and gargoyles looked down upon the stone floor of this magnificent hall. A blood-red rug split the entire room in half and was matched by the thinner ones on either side of the hall, while ribbon banners with burnished margins draped from the walls. Between each banner hangs a torch. They've all been lit and in turn illuminated the mosaics of various figures. Massive, colored glass windows were neighbored by veils colored the same chestnut as the banners. The curtains have been adorned with emblazoned edges and decorating tips. Regardless of the decoration and the grandeur of the throne hall, it lacked the thing a throne hall shouldn't, a throne. There was no throne in the throne hall. Where the throne should have been was a 4-foot pillar. Atop the pillar one could see a porcelain bowl. Where are the vampires? Are they cocky bastards who think no one would break into their castle or they are dead? Ayag couldn't help asking after noticing the barren land and the empty throne hall. I told you, I'm sensing 2 living beings. They are down, Sarba informed as Michael walked towards the pillar. While he was walking, Ayag looked around for stairs. However, she found none. The throne hall had no other rooms, stairs, or anything that seemed like leading to the other parts of the castle. I don't see any stairs, Ayag headbutt Michael on the side of his face, because there aren't any, Michael calmly said. System, scan this pillar, he willed the system, paying 1,000 badass points. The host needs the blood of a vampire to activate this lift. Since you don't have any, you have to pay the system additional 4,000 badass points to hack the lift. Hack it, the latest _SODs are on the L world. COM website. Vidora saw the ground beneath tremble as the ground began to descend. I lift, interesting, Michael was amused. Something told me the vampires might be slightly or ridiculously advanced than the rest of the world. This was the first time he had seen a lift in this world. The lift was descending for almost 10 minutes before it came to a halt. The wall before them slowly slid open to reveal yet another gloomy hall lit with torches. Unlike the throne hall above, this hall was darker, gloomier and had one large round table at the end of the hall. Where are the 2? Ayag asked Sarba. There, Sarba looked near the round table. You smell that? Sarba asked. The place reeks of blood. Ayag took a whiff of the air and said as they were saying, the place indeed reeked of blood. Too much blood to be honest. Michael could imagine what kind of horrors might have happened here or how much blood would have been spilled for the air to turn like this. If a weak-hearted person entered here, they would have been puking their guts out. Even with his mask which was built to filter the air, he could smell the blood. There's a door. When they reached the round table, they saw a metal door on the side of the wall. Rather than immediately checking out what's on the other side of the metal door, Michael hopped over the round table because that's where the bloody footprints ended and a huge splatter of blood could be seen. My gut says it's our greater vampire, Ayag said as Sarba and Kane nodded. Michael squatted down to check out the dried blood. What are you doing? Ayag saw Michael scrap the dried blood off the ground and put chunks of blood into a vial. It's possible they had a meeting here and the higher-ups in the vampire hierarchy killed the greater vampire for leaving witnesses. Kane saw the chairs around the table and connected the dots. Ayag and Sarba nodded as Kane's words made sense. Why shouldn't we ask the one there? Michael pointed at the metal door. Michael calmly walked towards the door but not before placing spider all around the hall and sending a few through the gap between the door and the floor to see what's on the other side. His drones were still flying around the castle grounds to see if anyone was coming, but until now, the drones found no one. The castle grounds were empty. Michael's calm face turned cold as he kicked open the metal door. Visit L World. COM for a better user experience. Boom. The metal door flew into the hall on the other side like a bullet, revealing a cloaked figure at the end of the hall. Vidora could see another figure tied to a pole in front of the cloaked figure. Just in time, I was getting sick of this guardian blood, the cloaked figure's cold voice echoed through the empty dark hall. One could barely see anything in the hall, and if it wasn't for the ceiling directly above the cloaked figure letting through some light, the hall would be pitch black. The figure slowly turned around like a supervillain in a movie. The figure took his sweet time taking off the cloak. As soon as he did, Michael was surprised because he had seen him way before. Victor, it was Victor. The same Victor he saw on the Phoenix Island where he had a conflict with Lord Julius. At that time, Victor was a core-strengthening stage warrior. On the other hand, Victor had no idea that the man before him was Ghost. Even if he did, Michael didn't think Victor would give a damn. Three-headed Hydra. Exotic. Victor licked his lips, and when he did, Michael saw the vampire fangs sticking out of his mouth. They were longer and more menacing than the ones shown in the movies. Not more exotic than a vampire, Michael snickered as the grin on Victor's face turned evil. Darkness gives thy blessing. Victor roared. The very next moment, Victor turned onto a cloud of red smoke. The smoke vanished as Vidora looked around. Since Victor disappeared, they were able to see the girl tied to the pole. The girl's head was hidden beneath the sack on her head, and that was the only part of her body that had some cover as she stood naked. Her body was covered in her own blood. Vidora looked closer. finding that the girl was not tied to the pole but nailed to the pole through her arms, legs and stomach. She looked like Jesus except she was bloodier, naked and had several bite marks. It was obvious the vampires had been munching on her like she was some kind of living blood bag. Seeing this, Michael was pissed off. "Behind us!" Sarba shouted, sensing Victor's presence behind them. Victor wrapped his arms around Michael, and just when he was about to sink his teeth into Michael's neck, the dark flames shot out of his body. "Ah!" Victor immediately leaped away from Michael, screaming in agony. Just a sliver of dark flames was enough to burn Victor's armor to nothingness. "I thought vampires would be stronger." Michael raised his hand as the shadows surrounding Victor moved as though they came to life and grew limbs. They instantly grabbed Victor. "You get powers from the darkness." "But I am..." Michael flicked and pulled his arm as Victor flew right into his arm. The darkness sling. The source of this _chapter. L-World. Michael lifted Victor by his neck in one hand and the hidden blade came out of its sheath in the other hand. Michael swung the hidden blade, cutting Victor's right hand clean off from his shoulder. "It!" Victor screamed in agony. However, the right arm grew back in a couple of seconds. Regeneration. Michael's curiosity was just piqued. Victor tried to fight back using his newly grown hand. He cut Victor's hand once again, but this time, he used dark flames to burn the shoulder. "Ah! I don't want..." Michael heard a weak voice as Victor was screaming in agony. He turned his head and saw the naked girl moving her feet. Him, to scream more, although the voice of the girl was so weak as though she was on the verge of death, it was filled with pain and murderous intent. "You heard the lady," this time Iag spoke. Then she opened her mouth to breathe bright blue flames. Victor was screaming as the blue flames kept burning his body like marshmallows. His body was healing as fast as Iag burnt him. Still, he screamed in excruciating pain. "If you expecting backup, don't." Michael raised his hand as Iag stopped burning him. "I dispelled all the surveillance arrays and runes in the castle." Michael's calm words startled Victor and destroyed his hope. He agreed to be the bait, thinking the elder vampires would come to his rescue when or if things go south. The only way they could know what was happening in the castle was through the surveillance runes and arrays placed all around the castle. Even Vidora had no idea when he did that and was completely taken aback by surprise. "Did you think I will walk into a trap willingly?" Michael's evil laughter reverberated in the castle. Poch. This time, a large needle reached out of Michael's wrist, injecting a powerful knockout potion into Victor's bloodstream. Finally, his screams and body twitching came to an end. He dragged Victor to the girl by his neck. He then grabbed the sack on her, pulling it away to see her face. Try the L-World. See OM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Peyton. Chapter 480. Can Peyton be turned against the Guardians? Michael wasn't as surprised as Vidora was because Michael knew it was Peyton way before he took off the sack around her head. He heard Tiriana and the Alpha Guardian talk about the missing Guardians led by Peyton, and Victor told him he was sick of Guardian blood. Michael connected the dots and reached a conclusion: it was Peyton. Peyton's face was messed up as though the vampires were drinking her blood and beating her up for some sick pleasure. Michael hated the Guardians, but no one deserved this. Peyton could barely say the word. "I think we should put her out of her misery," Iag sighed. Even Iag, who inherited the personality of Gaia, couldn't help feeling pity for Peyton. "No." Michael gently grabbed her bloodied shoulder, injecting her with a little bit of healing potion to keep her alive and with the blood tonic to end her life if she tried to be a hero, although Michael doubted she would. "Are you the Dark Lord?" Instead of answering Peyton, Michael retrieved a piece of cloth and covered her naked body before removing the nails. "System, teleport us to the crypt." Michael willed the system. Since Michael was with Peyton and Victor, he couldn't use the runic teleportation. Hence, the system happily bought a teleportation scroll for 10,000 badass points and used it to teleport them away from the vampire castle, but not before leaving a teleportation rune. Delar and Jesse were attaching mind-controlling chips inside the Alpha Undead when they say Dark Lord suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall out of thin air. "Carry on." Michael was too focused on the task at hand to notice the 20 Alpha Undead standing at ease like super soldiers. First, Michael injected Victor with a whole lot of paralyzing poison and fear toxin. Then, he forced Peyton to sit on one of the chairs in front of a large oak table and his throne. Peyton was too traumatized to even look around. Her dead eyes had lost the glow Michael saw in them when they met before. He could only imagine what she may have gone through. "You should see this." Michael waved his hand as a giant mirror appeared before Peyton. Peyton's attention was immediately drawn by the feed that appeared. She saw the familiar faces of Tiriana and the person she looked up to the most, Tanulia aka the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. Peyton recruited these guardians and... What is it, Tiri? Visit Elworld. For a better user experience, the last member she recruited is Sabrina. Sabrina Winston, Noah's little sister. What the fuck was she thinking? She recruited someone who's not even a guardian? That bitch is expendable. But not her. If we are to lose Sabrina and Noah found out that his little sister died because of us, everything will be ruined. The feed stopped as Vidora expected some anger outburst from Peyton. However, Peyton didn't react as they expected. Only tears were rolling out of her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking in her mind. Michael began to play the mind games with her by putting the feed on a loop. That bitch is expendable. But not her. Peyton was feeling so many emotions at once. We have to find her no matter what. Immediately contact every single guardian in the southern continent. I'm authorizing Code Red. Use all and any resources. I need Sabrina found ASAP. I will contact the other alphas. After Tanulia spoke these words in the feed, Michael tapped the table. Your devotion is misplaced, Peyton. You heard her. For them, you who dedicated your whole life to the guild is simply... Michael paused for a moment. Expendable. Michael willed the system to play the feed again, fanning the flames of anger within Peyton's heart. Peyton couldn't move her eyes away from the mirror. She felt so betrayed because she was betrayed. She lost the count of days being tortured and getting her blood sucked out by vampires in that torture room. All that time she had hope in Alpha Guardians and the Hunter Guardians that they would come to her rescue. The vampires tortured her every single minute without a break. Every single day they sexually abused her. They sucked her blood from every bit of her body, cut her flesh for fun, and healed her up so they could start all over again. Nothing was able to break her spirit as she endured everything they did to her. However, Tanulia's words hurt and caused her more pain than the vampires ever could. This is the real face of the so-called Guardians, Peyton. It took several minutes before Peyton opened her mouth. Why did you save me? She looked directly in his eyes, completely avoiding eye contact with Vidora, Follerska, Avalon Elworld. Because you don't deserve what you went through and I only punish those who deserve to be punished. You're free to go. I bet they will welcome you with a parade, Iag said sarcastically. Even if they don't throw you in the prison or whatever the Guardians have, your career ends here, Kane informed Peyton. After hearing his siblings talk, Sarba also decided to give her a piece of his mind. You should really think about what you're gonna do next, Peyton. They don't deserve your faith and loyalty anymore. If it wasn't for him who you people branded evil, you would have been still in that hell. Your guild calls themselves Guardians but they failed to guard their own. If they wanted, they could have used the resources they are spending on locating Sabrina to save you, your team, and eradicating the vampires. Michael let Sarba talk. He could see Peyton trembling in anger and her blood-red eyes as well as the veins bulging out of her skin was evident of her anger. They're probably not even aware of the vampires because they are too busy searching for one person. The moment you return to your guild, they will treat you more like a traitor than a survivor. Do yourself a favor, don't believe the Guardians and the great clans blindly. They are not what you think. While Peyton was staring at Vidora, Michael moved a spider into her hair, then into her skin through the cut on the back of her neck. Take a long look in the mirror and think about where your loyalty should be. I know you joined Guardians wanting to change the world for the better. If you still want to do that, come find me. Michael slid a card marked with the location of somewhere secluded in the Elon continent. The very next moment, Michael waved his hand as Peyton disappeared from the crypt. Vidora did not expect Michael would teleport Peyton away as they thought he was going to turn her against the Guardians or at least get some valuable information about the Guardians from her. What the hell did you do? I thought we were getting close to turning her against her people, Iag frowned. She is too emotional now. We just put the seed of anger and betrayal in her heart. Let's give it some time to grow and become a giant tree. Then we don't have to go to her, she will come to us. Michael was pretty confident. There was no turning back for Peyton after hearing Tanulia and Tiriana. She was betrayed by the people she trusted, which would do some serious damage to her and shake Peyton's beliefs. I hope she doesn't blabber about us and everything, said Iag. She won't? Michael shook his head slightly. If she tried, Michael would know and he would activate the nanites in her body to kill her instantly. The sun was slowly rising on the horizon from its slumber, painting the green hills of the sunrise sect with its golden rays. The early morning arrived as a promise kept for the disciples to spend yet another day in their wonderful sect. A group of students was flocking toward a gigantic dome made of glass with bright faces. Today they were going to harvest the ripened fruits and herbs from the largest herbal garden in all the sects on the Elon continent. Unlike 2 years ago, the Sunrise sect was filled with disciples. The place looked lively as never before. There were many new buildings, teachers, fountains, and carriages going in and out. Most of these carriages belonged to various nobles who were trying to put their kids into the sect because the Sunrise sect had become one of the best in Elon. Updated_at L World. Calm at the moment, a green-haired beauty was running through the crowd of students carrying a stack of books in her hand towards the herbal garden. Good morning, Miss Olivia. Good morning, Miss Olivia. Morning, Miss Olivia. Good morning, good morning, good morning. The students were greeting Olivia while moving away from her path. Today was the last day of the assignments Ghost gave her, and she had to harvest 128 herbs to be exact. In her hurry to the garden, she dropped one of her books. She didn't notice that until someone called her from behind. You dropped this. Olivia's mind realized the chit-chatter of the students suddenly disappeared as though someone switched off the noise around her. Her body froze in its path when she recognized the face. As expected, she turned around and saw her mentor, Ghost, smiling at her. Teacher. She almost put the stacks of books in her hand down in shock. Most of the students who were new to the sect and hadn't seen Ghost in person were stunned too. They were just gawking at him with their eyes wide open. Michael walked towards Olivia, who was trembling due to the surprise he gave her. She hadn't expected Ghost to be back for another 3 months. Teacher, you're back. Yep. Let's go see sect leader Claire and everyone. Michael loved the sound of notifications ringing in his head, awarding him with badass points. It had been 3 months since he left the sect, and if his math was right, 50 million gold coins would be sitting there for him to collect. It was time he turned those coins into badass points using the banker function and upgraded the system so he could have more subordinates. As soon as he finishes here, he could finally start interrogating Victor back in the Dark Forest. The latest _SODIes are on _the L World. See Thoam website. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.